All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's
Number one.
number one political hip hop radio talk show.
Hey Ed, we can't see your face. We just see the top of your head.
Oh, so sorry.
That is here defined.
The
Yeah, we just
cameras,
see the ball head,
cameras too far
man.
back. Yeah. But welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one
Number
political
one.
hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it is the fourth Friday, y'all know it's uh time for the disciples. So we're waiting for them to come in. So until then, we'll give y'all the rundown in terms of what's up tonight. Of course, they're up first, and then after that, John, we have what?
All right, so we have a wonderful person up next. We have someone we should have had on our show a long time ago, right? Lisa Durden is a media specialist. She's a social justice filmmaker. She's a documentary filmmaker. She's done so much.
She can
In
act a
media.
little bit too.
She's what?
She can act a little bit too.
No, I didn't know that. I did not know about her acting
yeah,
background.
yeah. Queen is loaded.
Well, I know about her journalism background. I know about her filmmaking background. And so we're going to talk about her projects tonight and just celebrate Lisa Durden because, she should have been on our show a long time ago. But
Yeah.
I was funny because she had people who were on there a long time ago, but we didn't have Lisa on it. So Lisa's going to be on our show tonight, and we're honored to have her on. And then at 7:30, we're going to have Pamela McCauley on from the 22nd annual Brides March against domestic violence. We're going to spend a lot of time on that.
Pam is not going to talk about the Brides March. We got two other advocates. One of the organizers to talk about the Brides March. Pam is going to localize the work around domestic violence to bring the whole question home.
Okay, great. That's excellent.
Maria Lozado and a young lady that I work with that I'm very proud of, Kissy Hildago, who lost her sister to domestic violence. They participate in the march, and Pam will talk about how we deal with domestic violence locally.
Okay, so that's excellent, right? That's excellent. So that's going to be a real packed show in that. And then after that, we'll have DJ Rhino and the State of Hip Hop, and so we'll be coming through with that. So we know that it is the fourth Friday. That means it is the fourth Friday. It is the disciples, and we have Reverend Louise Scott-Rountree, now councilwoman, not at large. Well, no, councilwoman.
At large. That's
at large, right? Councilwoman at large. I keep getting confused by at large, right? I keep getting confused by the name, like as in it's one of those like the person who's about to be. I was like, no, she is the councilwoman, but councilwoman at large, Louise Scott-Rountree. Always honored to have you on the show.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm looking for like my colleagues, like my.
We need to get her a driver too. Look at her. She's so dedicated.
Actually, I have a driver, but I really needed to get to this women's symposium. So I told one to go with her daughter, and I told my son to go to another meeting. And I decided to take myself so I could think and really do this program. I'm going by to speak to some women in, believe it or not, Roselle. But it's a pastor from Newark that works with women from reentry. So you're going to look through the steering wheel because the piece that I use, I have in another car to put my phone on. So y'all.
So who's the pastor in Roselle?
No, the pastor is actually from Newark. Her name is Pastor Pamela Jones. She's Liberating Word Ministries, but she does awesome work with women who are just coming home. I've been partnered with her on a initiative where a couple of years ago, remember when they had all of these women that came out, and I think it was maybe about 200 people were being released, male and female, and she did about 200 care packages for the women when they came out and met them, along with, of course, I think Keisha Yuri and some other people were also a part of that initiative. But she actually had us.
Yeah, that has been operationalized, and now something that we call meet them at the gate.
Meet them at the gate.
Yeah, that's a significant.
So that's a term now.
You can have somebody come on and talk about that whole thing because it's become a statewide thing. So that was no small gesture that you're talking about.
No, and now she goes above and beyond. She does like, okay, so she says, okay, now they're home. Now what? and some of them have children. She did right after they came home in December. She did a Mother's Day event. She did an event in the park. She got raised money for them to get to the park for the event, to pick up care packages, gifts, sheets, all of those things. And if they did not show up, they had to find a way to give that transportation money back that they received. So they showed up. They showed up. But good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. It is an honor to once again be on All Politics and Local, where, listen, this is number one hip hop political radio show. The best. Thank you, Ed Riley, Jonathan, Baba. I want to thank all of you also for the condolences and the support and all that you all gave my family and myself during this sense of bereavement and the transitioning of my dad, who has now joined the ancestors to watch over me and us.
You have to call his name.
Yeah, Reverend Malachi David
Malachi.
Roundtree, the
Name the
first.
whole book of the Bible after me was so
That's
bad. Go
it.
ahead now.
Reverend Dr. Malachi D. Roundtree the first. Oh yeah. So yeah, so thank you guys.
Lift you up.
Thank
We lift you up, my boy. We lift your family up.
And even the way
He
you
had a
talk
great
about
father. He was a great leader in the community.
Yes, he did an awful lot. He became his own developer. Let me tell you something. There are situations where people were actually taken advantage of as developers. He went to faith leaders that were used during the time of rebuilding the city of Newark. There were several pastors that were brought together. And in doing so, these pastors that were brought together, I'm gonna just call it as it is. You know, there were people of the clearer persuasion that said, "Listen, we're gonna use your nonprofit. We're gonna buy the land at a cheaper rate, and we'll throw you a bone." That's really what they did. And when my father saw what the bone was, he said, "I'm just gonna become my own developer, get the land myself with my own nonprofit, and build some affordable housing. Houses were going for like 140, 160, 1 and 2 family homes for people who had never owned a home before. They wanted to be homeowners. He was really ahead of his time. He did some things with anti-poverty agencies long before. He worked at UCC when UCC was at the height of their game. Team, various activists that were doing things. Listen, Amiri Baraka was at the top of his game. He was trying to wake folks up and tell them, "Listen, you got the power. Do you know that? You can do all this if just the people come together." It's amazing how we've had so many people that have gone on before us that had the knowledge, tried to speak life to us, and it's still going on today. I mean, it's still going on today. We're still trying to get people to realize, Baba, when you speak, you're trying to get people to realize, listen, wake up, black man, wake up, black woman, wake up, people. Ownership is the key, and education is the key. They can't take what's inside your head, and if you own it and you take care of it, they can't take that either.
Roundtree, where did he build those houses at?
Winans Avenue, Rose Road, over by, where the cemetery is on Rose Terrace?
Yeah.
Rose Terrace, all of those houses. 18th Avenue is where he helped T-Bow. He told Reverend T-Bow, break away from this developer. He said, and start your own. So Reverend T-Bow, God rest his soul, built a slew of houses over there as well. So you go through the 18th Avenue, Rose Terrace, Rose Street, all in that vicinity. Those houses that are over there were built by Macedonian Ministries.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So
not only was my mother I had to tell somebody, I had to say something to an individual that didn't realize it. Economic development, African Americans were doing economic development before there were grants. They had to raise their own money. They had to do their own thing. My mother didn't have nobody to go and get a loan from to buy the mansion or open up her beauty shops. There was no small business loans. That wasn't happening. You had to save your money and go and get it. And pray that you was dealing with somebody that wasn't going to give you a hard time because you were black to get the land or the business.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
and then to open up businesses and to place people to work. We can do this. We can do it. It's just the mindset. You know, I always blame myself. I said, I'm not who my mother was on that side because I didn't have to go through what she went through to get what she got.
Right.
I didn't have to clean the toilets. I didn't have to take care of the Jewish families to save money to put myself through school. I didn't have to do any of that. So I never saw the struggle. I saw the benefits of the struggle.
Right.
And I benefited from her struggle. And now I'm somewhere that I didn't put myself. I'm somewhere through the teachings of my parents and a community that sowed into me positive things, beneficial things, things that would help me grow. I didn't say I wanted to be a preacher, a pastor, a reverend, a public servant. I didn't say as an 18-year-old, this is what I'm going to do when I become 21. I
Right.
didn't do that. I ended up here by God's grace and direction for real. For real.
So, what was the turning point for you? Now, you rarely get a chance to talk about yourself like that in such a
And
rooted way,
I
right?
remember the mayor saying, Brother Riley, he used to say when we were out on the campaign trail, I'd be so busy talking about everybody else and the great things they're doing. He says, but you got to talk about you.
What you gonna do? Yeah.
And I guess because I was always raised that the proof is in the pudding, that, you're known for the works that you do. So it's better to show somebody than to talk about you. I've never been one to talk about who I am, what I am, where I came from. This is something new for me, but when I start talking, I can tell the story. And the truth is, because my family had been through some real challenges in the church and in business. Those are two things I didn't want to do. Church is something I wanted to go to and participate in, but in leadership, absolutely not. When I tell you this was all a spiritual move, people around you navigating you and God moving them to move you. My pastor one day said, I'm going to license you. And I said, I don't need a piece of paper to validate me ministering to people and talking to people. And that went on for about 6 months. And one day he asked me for a date on the calendar because I was keeping the calendar for the church. And I didn't know what he wanted it for. And I said, okay, what do you want? And he said, just give me a date. I gave him a date. Next thing I knew, he was saying, well, that's where we're going to license Louise Scott-Rountree. And I was like, what? The next thing I knew, I was in seminary. Next thing I knew, I was getting ordained. And politics is something I've been in since I was 4 years old. I remember my godmother telling me, oh, baby Louise, you used to look so cute sitting on Ken Gibson's desk at 3 and 4 years old, passing out literature. I don't remember. I remember my birthday party at 4 years old because I had the beautiful cake at the mansion. It was turquoise and yellow. That I remember that. That's all I remember. My birthday cake at 4. But I don't remember sitting on the desk on Jones Street at the KAG headquarters passing out Ken Gibson. I don't even know that was legitimate. They used to think it was cute, I guess. And that's really, I guess, my first hand in the political arena. And then from there, I went to work at the Leaguers. My mother sent me to, she used to send me to summer camp every year. And then when I was getting ready to go into my teens, she was like, no, I want to send her somewhere else. And she sent me with my godmother, Kitty Taylor, who used to have a radio show on
Yes,
WNJR.
I remember that.
And that's where I got my radio experience from. Kitty Taylor used to have me on the radio show singing. She always had me do a selection or taking the index cards because she would tape for the whole month one day. She'd have all her guests come in, different people from the community. It was intergenerational. And then I would volunteer with her at the Leaguers. And then when she moved to UCC as the senior services director, I used to work in her office there. I became a very involved individual with the senior citizens of the community. So, my life has been Never wanted to do anything political, but Kitty Taylor sort of drove that bus. My mother was, the politicians came to my mother. They came to her because she had the school, and that was votes. So they would come to her, business people, when they'd open up a business, they would come to her because she had a school. That was, I don't want to put it like that, but I'm going to say, put it like this. But the truth is, now a location. The truth is, my mother was what you might want to call a political, I don't want to say pawn, you know, maybe a political queen at that time.
Yeah, she was far more than spawn.
Yeah, a political pawn. I mean, a political, not pawn, I'm using that wrong P, power broker for constituency, for the politicians. I had pictures in my office of my mother with Hugh Adenizio. There was a governor named, at the mansion. I mean, I don't brag about who these people were, but they came to her house. You know, she wasn't going to them because they wanted to meet with her. Irvine Turner. There would be, matter of fact, he used to have a house right on the corner. So these people would come. I wasn't born yet. This all happened before me. There's a story of FOI, and I gather that's why this is in my DNA, because FOI, there was a brother named Brother Wadu who has since transitioned, but there is a Brother Wali and a couple of other Muslims that are still with us that tell the story. One day, Brother Wadu walked in my office when I was working for Cory Booker, and he said, "Do you know who your mother really, really was to us?" And I was like, "No, not you know." He said, "Do you know your mother was the only person that allowed us, I think it was the late 50s, to use her auditorium to have our meetings because nobody wanted to rent to us. Nobody, because here you walk around in bow ties and suits and they think you're radicals. So, you know, so people wouldn't rent to them. But my mother opened up and they told me the story. Then they moved to, I think, Greater Abyssinia, Greater Harvest, another church in Newark. They moved upstairs and then they went to South Orange Avenue. That's the history of that transition. I do remember as a teenager, she let the Moorish Muslim.
Roundtree. So March 25 used to hold their meetings at the mansion.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Larry Hazard knows the story.
I still want to know those years too. That's because that's a great story in itself.
Yep. Larry Hazard knew the story. He wasn't sure he should, something I was at, and he was like, I didn't know whether I should say it. I said, you know what is part of the history. But I don't know whether you know Brother Don Malik and Brother Wali. These brothers are much.
Brother Wali is still very much with us.
That's right. He knows the story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a what was it called? I'm going to do a series of people that are still amongst us, a recording. There was a session done, oral history series done by an organization just after my mother transitioned. Kitty Taylor started it. Catherine Hooker took it over. Or Kitty, I should say, bought the guest. And then Catherine Hooker took it over. She was the one that was in charge of the mansion project back in the 90s that never got completed. However, there's an oral history project. Well, I want to do a new one because there's people that are still around. My mother has 3 students that are still alive that graduated from Haqq school in 1946. Carol Clark's mother,
wow.
You know, her mother graduated. I went to honor her a couple of years ago, and she honored me with her graduation picture.
Wow.
She honored me with the class. My mother's graduate. I'll send you a copy of that picture, Brother Riley and Brother Bob.
Okay.
Have it. Yeah. So there's a rich history, and I tell people all the time, and this is for those of you who are listening and that are tuned in. The truth of the matter is, we don't share our history, and then we die.
Yeah, indeed.
And then we die. Thank God for the Barakas. Thank God for the pains. You know what I'm saying? Because the truth is, we have some rich history here in the city of Newark. There are doctors that were on Martin Luther King Boulevard that have long gone, children gone, no legacy, no history. And they used to call High Street Millionaires Row. There were like doctors all up and down the street when I was growing up. Black doctors. There was a couple of Jewish too, but there was gynecologists. I mean, Dr. Carr, medical doctors, Dr. Haling and Dr. Holmes. You had fashion people. Of course, we know the Wiggums. There are people. Dr. Berner, who there are doctors and listen, just community people. You know, there are people that were tied up in some stuff that made a little difference somewhere, just as an activist.
Hey, Roundtree, let me ask you a question. So, when they built those projects behind you, right behind the mansion, like, you know, I mean, what was back there before they did that?
See, I wasn't there then, so but I'm told that there was housing. They were like tenements.
Okay.
You know, the little housing, like so if you go to Prince Street, you know, I'm told that Miss Stewart, before she went to Lyons Avenue, was on Prince Street and started selling biscuits there. I have a book. Listen to this. I went to Senator Rice's street dedication. A lady comes up to me and says to me, do you know Miss Graham? And I said, Miss Evelyn Graham? I said, she retired from my mother when I was a little girl. She said, well, I was going through some archives for Clinton Memorial AME. Before my mother started her own church, when she came to Newark, she joined Clinton Memorial. That's where she had her first graduating class, in front of Clinton Memorial and in Clinton Memorial. She says, I have Miss Evelyn Graham's book from that year, 1946. So not only did Carol give me a picture, I have the original graduation book that lists people. You know how they do the ad journals now? Those souvenir journals, people buy ads.
Right.
I have the 1946 book with ads that were taken out in my mother's first graduation class journal with the businesses that were in this area.
Wow.
Not in this area, in the city of Newark.
Right.
And they were all African American. There's like 6 pages. You know,
do you remember any names, or do you remember any types of businesses?
Oh, I'm gonna tell you one right off the top of my head, because as a little girl, they were dying off. But the Coleman brothers, they had a hotel. They had a hotel. I think the last brother had, and it was right down the street from my mom's mansion. I think near where the Star Ledger was. I think that's where they said the Coleman Hotel was, because this stuff was all gone by the time I grew up.
Hey, Roundtree, do you remember the first Metropolitan Baptist Church?
Yes, that was on Prince Street. Reverend B.F. Johnson. Yes. Well, I don't know. He's a pastor I remember.
Right.
B.F. Johnson. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And what's crazy is B.F. Johnson was really good friends with my mom, and his first wife was. Then he remarried, but his son was Charlie Johnson. Worked at West Kinney Junior High. And what's amazing is my mother sent me to West Kinney for 1 year, but she didn't like the element of how I came back home talking. So then she put me in private school. I begged her to go to West Kinney. And she was like, them people fighting up here, you coming home, talking a different way. So she put me in a private school. But prior to that, I was in Quitman Street School, where Mrs. Evelyn Johnson was my 6th grade teacher, but also the daughter-in-law of B.F. Johnson. So like I was tied into some of these great families just growing up. Miss Evelyn Johnson did not play. And Charlie Johnson used to walk around with a stick called a nigga be cool stick. It was a big stick. He used to walk down the hall with that stick, and it had on there, nigga be cool. You know? It's amazing. There's another radio show host that I'm familiar with, and she was no joke. And I know y'all have heard this woman. She used to come on late at night. She was very controversial. My godmother was sweet. She'd bring all the information on, highlight entertainment, and have people come on talking about Social Security, politicians. But Bernice Bass, whole nother element. Bernice Bass would call you out. And there's some recordings of her, and I believe Junius Williams, they're getting ready to do something with some of the stuff that was found in her archives. The person that has her things. Newark has some of the deepest history that nobody tells because there's nobody around that knows or nobody to tell it.
So Roundtree. So since you live right in that mansion, so close to downtown, you could literally walk down to the Adams
Walk right
Theater.
down the hill. Did I?
Yeah.
Got in all kinds of trouble playing hooky. So I had a cousin that came up from Florida, and he got a job at the Adams Theater.
Wow.
So my
Wow.
mother, my mother took me to school when I got in junior high. That's why she put me in price. This all happened at West Kenny. I would go to school in the morning, go to homeroom. Oh, I shouldn't even be saying this. Go, listen, I wasn't the ideal child. But yes, I used to go to the Adams Theater. I didn't like the Brantford Theater. I used to go to Penny Arcade.
And the Brantford Theater was right across the street from
Right
the
across the street. Well, see, I had a cousin who worked at the Adams, so I could get in there to see movies I shouldn't see. The Bradford Theater, if you were not old enough to see certain movies, you were not getting in. They were strict, and I didn't know nobody there. The Paramount got to know me eventually because I always looked grown and had my own money. My mother would drop me downtown to go shopping, and I would find time to go to a movie. But she wouldn't even, my mother was like, oh, well, I know that Elvin's not going to let her in if it's something she shouldn't see. Elvin did not care. I got to see some of those black exploitation movies that I really shouldn't have been looking at.
Yeah, like Coffee.
Like Coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
I fell in love with William Marshall, who was a phenomenal actor. Blackula.
Yeah.
That wasn't quite like Coffee and Cleopatra Jones and
the Mac, Superfly.
Yeah.
All the movies. Yep, I saw all of them in those theaters back in the day.
That's what I saw. That's exactly where I saw them.
And Roundtree, do you remember? You remember Bambergers?
Well, it was transitioning to Macy's. It was what they used to call it, BAMs, right?
Right.
Used to call it BAMs. But I remember by the time my mother started going there, she might have gone without me when it was Bambergers. But by the time I started going, it transitioned to Macy's. I remember Macy's. I remember Canadians as a little girl because my mom had to go there to deal with something with furs. Orbach's, S. Klein's, McCauley's.
Hanes.
Hanes, Woolworths. That was all down there.
Yeah, it was classy in Newark.
It was very much so. The Kinney building, the drugstore on one corner. I forgot what was on the other corner.
In terms of S. Klein's, that's how actually my family came to Newark.
Really?
Yeah, because the uprisings happened in '67, and I wasn't born yet, right? Like my family was living in New York City, and my father worked at S. Klein's in New York City, and the uprisings happened. And they were like, well, Louis Olson, we have some opportunities in Newark, in late 1967, early 1968. They're like, we have some opportunities in Newark because we'd like you to be a manager of our camera. You work in our camera store in New York, but you can manage the camera department in Newark because the uprisings happened and black people need more black people. And,
they wanted some folks to look like the folks that they thought was going to come and hurt them.
Exactly.
Right. So
because truthfully speaking, someone was telling me, I went to a funeral for a guy named Charlie Price, I think his name was. He had a bar on Avon Avenue, and his family was saying that the ownership transitioned to him from the guy that owned it because they said, well, this bar belongs to a black guy. We're not going to mess, we ain't going to mess with it. And that's pretty much what took place during the as they say, the rebellion, that my mother's businesses were not bothered. But now there was a person, Sherman Decorators, that came to her and says, listen, we got all this property on Springfield Avenue. We're going to move to Milburn. Would you take this building? Would you buy this building? Can we sell this building to you? And before she transitioned into that property, because she put an ice cream parlor there, a church there, and it was mixed use. She had apartments upstairs. That's where Dollar General sits now on Springfield Avenue and 6th Street. That's where the property used to be. And they broke the windows out, and she had a brick face after they did that when she moved in, but they had broken the windows. Sherman Decorators, there were two Jews that factory, upholstery. They owned that whole corner. And there's a church called Welcome or something that still sits there on 6th Street. And in that building is where they housed the material and did some of the work, where they would showcase in the front on Springfield Avenue all of the furniture. There was a place called, there was another black business over there, Halo Wigs. There was a guy, I forgot what his name was, but it was, and then there was the Coleman brothers. Back to them, there were like 8 or 9 of them. This lady had 11 children, I think 1 girl and 10 boys or something. And they all, the majority of them had a business or either was a pastor. One of the pastors pastored Philemon. The other pastor pastored a church in Massachusetts. Couple of the brothers had a business called the Dreamboat. Then another, my father says to me, Lord God, my father would say to me, and people that get to really, really know me, my memory is amazing.
Hey, Roundtree, let me ask you this. Do you remember, right? Like remember there was like on Springfield Avenue, on Howard Street. Remember all them bars? It was like bars everywhere.
Yeah, but
Springfield
see,
Avenue,
I
Howard
wasn't old
Street.
enough for that, but I do remember Sydney's because my mother used to go there to get corned beef sandwiches.
Now, when you say you weren't old enough for that, were you trying to? Because you told us about you sneaking in all sorts of places.
Yeah, but I wasn't sneaking in. Listen, I didn't have to sneak in Zanzibar. I did, and I didn't really sneak in. I walked in and got caught. The Key Club. All right. And how I got caught is, and Barbara Cooper put this in her book. She just had the wrong age. I was in the Key Club one day in between classes at Essex, and it was during the day. And Sadie Vinay, which was a fashion commentator, but also she worked with the city for a minute. She was
She had a
walking by
column in the New Jersey Afro-American.
Sadie, yep. And she saw through the curtains were open during the day. So I was sitting in there and she saw me. So of course they didn't have cell phones then. She called my mother. I mean, because she lived in the Hallmark house. So she was walking, I guess Sadie didn't drive. She walked home and called my mother. I think she came to come in and saw me and must have went in the first. They had double doors. So she probably came in the first door. I didn't hear her. The music probably was playing. This is in the daytime, maybe about 2 or 3 o'clock. And she called my mother when she got home and
this
said,
was the Key Club?
the Key Club on it was on William and Halsey. And she called my mother and said, do you know little Louise is sitting in the Key Club? So my mother wasn't a club person. She didn't do bars. She didn't drink. That she was totally the other side of any of that. She had a hotel where people used to come and rent rooms that was coming from the bar. But she did not, that was not her thing. And so she got the number from Sadie and she called. And I'm sitting there watching the guy who I knew answer the phone. And he's like, oh, okay. So he came over to me, he says, how old are you? And I was like, why? He said, listen, Miss Scott just called to you. Your mother? That's your mother? He said, she said that if you're not out of here before she get here, she gonna have the keys to the Key Club. Little bit, you got to leave.
Hey, Roundtree.
Little bit, you got to leave, girl.
But he didn't know my real name. He used to always call me Little Bit when I was walking by from school. So one day, me and my girlfriend was walking by, and he's like, why don't y'all come in and have a drink? I didn't even know what to order. So I ordered a soda. My girlfriend ordered a vodka and orange juice. And I wasn't drinking no liquor. They could have lost their liquor license.
Sure could have.
Because I think I was 16 years old. Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is, Roundtree, I mean, you was small for your age. So, I mean, it's amazing that they even let you in there.
Well, the difference is I was probably acting more mature. I understand. My mother had me around all old folks all the time. I didn't play with children other than when I was in school. When I came up from school, I worked at her hotel. I did my homework. Then after homework was done, if there was an assignment at the hotel, I would do that. If there was an assignment at the beauty school, I would do that. If there was an assignment at the ice cream parlor, I'd do that. So I believe that my work ethic comes from my mother working me. So my father used to say to her, maybe we shouldn't be so hard on her with the work, because that might be a form of child abuse. My mother did not care. She was like, go down there and iron them pillowcases. Now watch this. While I'm doing the work for the business, somebody else would be washing my clothes, doing those things for me. But I had to. One day she told me that if I asked, could I go to the movies? It was on a Saturday. She said, well, you iron those pillowcases, and she had like a machine to just run them through. And she said, when you finish that, you could go to the movies with your friend. But when I finished, she said, no, it's too late. And it was like about 4:30, 5 o'clock. So she was at the mansion. I was at the hotel, which was a block away. I went anyway. And then I was scared to come home. So when the movie was over, I called my mother because I knew from a payphone at the movie theater. And I said, Mom, she says, where are you? And she was so worried about me, she wasn't even mad. She was like, you better get here, you know. So we was at the Adams Theater, of course. But yeah, I was around old people. So, and then I always had my own money because I worked. She paid me. I got paid for being the shampoo girl. So I always had my own little change, you know. So when I go in places, I walked with the authority of the maturity that was instilled in me from being around so many elders. I worked the hotel at 4 years old, 5 years. As soon as I could answer a phone, she had me answering the switchboard. You know, and there are people around that know these stories, you know, so.
Yeah, and so Roundtree, you've been a hustler really all your life.
Pretty much. Not on
And
purpose.
and that's the thing. I mean, and I'm saying your work ethic is incredible.
Yeah. My mother used to get up in the morning.
It seemed like everywhere at the same time to me. But
listen,
but you know, as you talking, Roundtree, one of the things I was thinking about was that scripture in Proverbs 18:16, the one that says, "A man's gift maketh room for him."
yes, your
bringeth him
gift
before
will make
great men.
room for you.
Right. And
Yes.
so it's really no wonder that you ended up you know, not only, you know, handling all of the churches. There's no wonder that you ended up as the councilwoman at large. Your gift made room for you. That was you did that based on the grace of God. So all of that
For
was
real. I
yeah.
tell
Sound
you,
like
for
a
real.
disciple, Ed.
He sure does. Listen,
Sound like a
for
disciple.
real.
Well put.
Listen. I tell people, you know, we have to understand, like when I talk about Amriti Baraka and I talk about my mom and my dad and those who have gone on before us to make strides and do phenomenal things. You know, I've been saying lately for the past couple of years that we have to make preparation for the next generation. Shame on us. I had no idea that when I was asked to answer the phone in the mayor's office for the Booker administration, that phone etiquette came from my mother sitting me at a switchboard at 4 and 5 years old saying, just say good afternoon, Scott's Hotel, how can I help you? And so training, embedded etiquette, embedded some things we need to embed in our children, in our young people. We can't expect to go and talk to them once a month and once every other month and it sticks. But the consistency of how we do a thing, that's what I learned from my mom. She never just started a thing and came back 6 months later to complete it. She would start something and until it was completed, stick with it. So whatever I'm doing, I can't just step away from if it was God assigned, because I didn't assign myself to it. And that's one of the things that so many people want to do things that they're not really assigned for. They just want to do it. And in doing that, our young people, like they're examples. We're their example. They watching us, Ed. They watching us, Baba.
Yes, they are.
But not only should we be teaching and training them, you know, the history. Listen, you can have anything you want. I'm not a millionaire because I didn't do what it takes to be one, but what my mother put in me is worth more than millions.
That's right.
So
in the spiritual tradition of our ancestors called Ifa, that's what we call Iwapele.
Yes.
Character.
Yes. Right? Listen, karma is real. I don't care what nobody says. What goes around comes around. I said it in a show not long ago. You told people to do unto others. I hear that often. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. But if a person hasn't been trained to love, you cannot, or doesn't have never experienced love, or doesn't know what it feels like to care, or doesn't know what it feels like because nobody ever cared for them, you can't expect them to do unto you what's never been done unto them.
But Roundtree, can you? One of the things you just said was God assigned. Talk about that a
Yes,
little.
God assigned. So as I was telling you about the history of how I ended up, and so watch this. So I didn't set out and make no plan to go to seminary. I just ended up going because I wanted to learn more. My pastor talked about, you know, when you're having conversations about certain things. So I didn't set out to do. I didn't set out to be licensed. I could have said no, but when he asked for the date, God assigned me to be equipped to have the certain mentality to deal with all people, not just some people. Um, the assignment of working in government came ridiculously crazy. I came to work and do some volunteer work for a particular um, public servant that one day knew I was not employed and sent me to City Hall and said, just go to City Hall. I need you to pick up something. And I said, no, I'm volunteering for you in your office. I can't do that. He said, just go. And I went to City Hall and the lady handed me a document. The document was a job application. I didn't even ask for a job. She gave me the job application in an envelope and I was getting ready to leave. She said, do you know why you're here? I said, no. She says, he didn't tell you? I was like, no. She said, you're here to get a job. She said, go fill out that application. Fill out the application. Went from 0 to 58,000 in one day, 20 years ago.
Wow.
Right?
Oh,
Now, I got terminated. Right? Because people in the next administration that came behind that administration, not on purpose, it's just a position I was in. If you weren't civil service, they automatically terminate. They send everybody termination letters.
Yeah.
The same person that sent me the termination letter heard me when I was brought back answer a phone, did not know I was the person he sent the termination letter to, and said, Monday, I want this lady, and you know who I was. I want her in the mayor's office. The same person who wrote sent out termination letters or gave the order, did not know he was asking for a person that had been terminated to be back in the mayor's office where she was terminated from.
And this was Sharp James?
No, it wasn't Sharp. It was the Booker administration. Sharp is who hired me. Okay. Booker is who someone, they sent out termination letters. So I was terminated. But it was crazy. He was the mayor then. And he didn't know about it. But some people advocated, and 3 months later, I was back and I was working in personnel. But I'm saying this to say that I was removed, and the person who sent out the letters didn't know who he was talking to. He just so happened to call the office I was working in and was so impressed by my voice and how I handled the call. He just said, he told the manager, whoever that is,
I want her.
I want her. And so when I said God assigns, when God has an assignment for you, you don't even have, you ain't got to lift your hand. He gonna move you. Just that simple.
But see, here's the thing, Roundtree. The story you telling now can get somebody saved. See, because you what you tell. I mean, the way you telling the story is you didn't even go there for a job.
I didn't.
Right.
I didn't.
Here you are. You ended up in that job.
Divine order said we got to take care of this one, and we're gonna put her right here.
But watch this. Watch this. Right.
And then you look at.
I didn't go there for a job. But wait a minute. But I volunteered for the person who sent me to go get the job for 60 days without asking for a dime.
Right.
My son's great-grandmother said to me, why are you getting up every day going to church like you're getting a paycheck? I mean, going to work. I said, because I committed to doing this and God's going to provide. Yeah. At that time, my father was paying my rent.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about succumbing to some of the things and the elements and the people and some of the things. I was just blessed that way. I listen. I'm not afraid to say I went and got food stamps. You know, this was before I got the job. I went and got food stamps and no one would ever believe. So when people used to say, oh, she grew up in a mansion, she didn't have no bad life. People tell their story, but there's another side to my story too. They just haven't heard the whole story yet. But the truth is, even though I grew up with a silver, gold, and platinum spoon in my mouth, The truth is, God at one point showed me a plastic spoon. So I know what it's like
go
on
through those
both
things to learn humility and appreciation.
Come on. Listen,
Grace.
I grew up watching my mother treat people. I guess it was a test to see when I got to that point, how was I going to act? Would I still think that or would I ever think that because of my upbringing that I was still better, even though I was at my lowest point? But I never saw my mother in my entire life treat the person who cleaned the hotel better than she treated, less than she treated the governor or a council person or someone in corporate. I never saw her treat. Everybody got a smile. And so I don't know how to do it no other way. People that probably didn't like her, that were enemies of her neighbor, Renee Stokes. Some people were in competition with her, because she was successful and they didn't have as much as her. They were right in the neighborhood. But I never heard her talk about nobody. And Kitty Taylor used to have that same. I never heard I wanted to be that person. Somebody's going to be somewhere that don't like you. It doesn't matter. You can be the best landlord in the world, and somebody going to find a paint chip to complain about.
So Roundtree, we got all of this history with Noah. Tell me, how do you end up in all these street organizations? How does that happen?
Just moving, showing up where you're needed, and not just showing up. That's just part of it.
Because most pastors, and reverends ain't coming in the street.
So that's my father piece. That's the father piece. That's my father piece. And so I was telling the mayor not long ago. So I know there's somebody somewhere that has the ability to move in the same spirit, in the same way. I know that God didn't break. Well, he might have broke the mold when he created me, because I got so much in me from from two very deep people and a community. I watched the Mary Baraka, but I couldn't hang at Committee for Unified North, which was right down the street from me. I wanted to cut my hair off and get an afro and a dashiki so bad. I thought that was cute. I thought that was the thing. I didn't even understand what it really was. It wasn't cute. There was a movement, and I couldn't do it. As I've grown older, I realized that somebody said, oh, now you should. I heard somebody say, where was she 20 years ago? It doesn't matter where I was 20 years ago. What matters is that I'm here now. Because it's always, they didn't say it to me. I heard nobody didn't say that to me. But I heard they said it in a general way. Yeah, all of a sudden now all these people showing up to the protests and showing up. Somebody said that a couple of years ago. So my thing is, it doesn't matter when I or anybody else show up for the cause or the need for the people, as long as we show up. I'm so glad I got the message. I'm so glad. Listen, nothing's 100% good and nothing's 100% bad. The truth of the matter is, I will always thank God for not what my mother and father sowed into me, but the experience of being around Babas and being around Shears and being around Ed Riley's, and most assuredly being around Raz Baraka and his family, because in spite of what people think, say, and do, and there's some other activists out here, there's plenty of them. There's plenty of them with misdirected energy. Because if we could just come together as a people and really, my father always would say it's in the numbers. It's in the numbers. The Bible says one can send 10,000 to fight and two can send. And we won't even come together because we're too busy worried about who's in charge, and we don't agree with that. If it's in the best interest of the people, it don't dare going matter who in charge. And that's where we got to get to. But we didn't invent all of this stuff. We didn't invent this. This stuff been happening since Abel and Cain. Murder started long ago. Brother against brother. We're not going to ever wipe the slate clean. But what we can do is set examples that we're working together to help our people.
Yep. But now, Roundtree, you also.
I would love to see you in the front.
I had one.
I would love to see you natural love. That would be powerful.
Here goes my rebellious thing. So she wouldn't let me do it. My mother had a beauty school, right? It did.
Yeah, that's of course.
So this one I did. Adibu. Brother Lawrence Ham used to hang with one of the kids in my 5th grade class. He, God rest his soul, Michael Hyder, used to hang, and he used to go to committee. That's how I saw the Dashikis. He used to people walking by, and he used to come to school with them on. We didn't have uniforms, and I was like, oh, I want one of them so bad. So one day I went to a barbershop near Sydney's, told them my mother said she wanted them to cut my hair, and nobody, believe it or not, like, I did this twice. I did it at the barbershop, and then I had a toothache one day and took my money and went to Dr. Colson and told him my mother wanted me to take the tooth out. Want him to take. He called my mother. The barbershop did. The dentist called my mother and said, you know your daughter over here? And she's, and I was sitting in the room, and I looked up, my mother was walking in the dentist's office because it was right across the street from the mansion. Stupid me, duh. But I did cut my hair, and I got in a lot of trouble, and so did the owner of the barbershop because I was a minor. She didn't take him to task, but she definitely went up there and gave him hell. But yeah, I did eventually take it upon myself because she said no in the 5th grade, but in the 7th grade I did it.
But now Roundtree. Now let's admit you also part of that pretty girl crew, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
That
so
pretty
let me tell you about being a pretty girl and having your own money. So when I would go in places, because I had my own, and my mother had instilled some other values in me, I didn't need you.
Right.
You telling me how I looked didn't matter to me.
That'll keep you safe too. That's right.
Yeah. It didn't matter to me. I remember there was a store called Joe Camelia's downtown Newark.
Yeah.
I won't use names, but my dad used to go there, and Gentry. They were like next to each other. So I was walking by there one day, and there was another club called Sparky J. So I go around the corner, right?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Now I'm gonna try to sneak in Sparky J's because Key Club I know I can't get in, but it's in the evening. Sparky used to live in Hill Manor. I did not know where he lived. He also worked for Ken Gibson. So I think he was one of his aides or something at one time. And I went in there and I didn't know what to order. But I remembered the lady in Key Club that owned the Key Club had a little green bottle. And I pointed at the bottle. I didn't know it was champagne. I said, I want one of those right there. Right? And it was Piper's, Heisnick or something. So, of course, I heard somebody say, well, ain't nobody going to be buying her no drinks when she's spending that kind of, she got that kind of taste. High maintenance, they call it nowadays.
Yeah.
I appreciated having my own money because I did not have to worry about nobody messing with me because I could pay my own way. It was a challenge for some because some people want to talk to somebody who can pay their own way because they ain't got to spend nothing.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, I didn't want you talking to me because I don't need you. And my mother really was real strict about that, especially since she owned a hotel, which put a little fear in me because as a little child, I heard some things and I was like, oh, Lord, what they doing? I'm just saying. So it put a little fear in me. And then she taught me the value of me, of me, my physical being. She taught me the value that you only get one you and iron wears. She taught me those type of values. She said something crazy to me one day, like, you sit on a check that will never bounce, but you ain't got to write it for nobody. Those. I mean, these type of things, you only get one you, and once you give that one you up, there's nothing else left to give. What else is there to give?
But that's true. I heard Minister Farrakhan say it this way. He said that all that a woman has is herself, and when she give that to an idiot, right, then she's just giving the best part of herself to an idiot.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I learned how to live, sustain, and maintain. In this age with the, and now at some point, of course, I have a son, and he's 27 years old. But what I realized is I also had to be an example for him. And whatever I was to him would be the first example of what he would see in a woman. And men have a tendency to judge women sometimes by their mothers.
That's true. That's absolutely.
Because that's the first example they've had. So if mama loose, they're going to look at it. If they can't trust, if mama's boyfriend and husband couldn't trust her,
Yeah.
then that's the way, and that's how they develop. I've seen men messed up by their mothers.
But it's also the first love, right?
First love.
First love.
First love.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
could be also the first hate. It's a very thin line. They love. They're gonna love their mother no matter what. But
right.
It's like you say, God loves the sinner but hates the sin. You know what I'm saying? So they love, but then when they have something to compare with, so you go out and you see another mother and you're looking at that mother and she's nothing like what you're living with. Now you're saying, wow. You know.
Yeah, but I think that in my mind, I don't think a mother to a son can do no wrong. I just don't.
That's what I would think. That's what I would think. And like I said, because I've dealt with so many different personalities, not taking away the love they have for the mother, but trying to heal the hurt that they might have experienced through seeing their mother hurt.
Right.
When you see, you can love your mother and see her get beat up by somebody and you can't do nothing about it, and you got to live through that pain and wonder why your mother tolerated that.
Oh man,
so
we're gonna have a whole segment on domestic violence in a little while.
That's why I'm saying there's when you start talking about mothers and fathers and love and relationships, that there's so many dynamics to that. There's so I tell people you can't just have a conversation about one thing and not talk about the other 10 things that go with it. You can. I tell little girls right now, if I see a little boy hit a little girl and run, I go and get him. I say, come here, let me talk to you. And then I tell her, that's how it starts. It's not cute. So no boy have no business putting his hands on you, not even playing. Unless y'all playing ball or tennis or something. And it's an accident. Don't hit me. I'll never forget this boy. He's still around, to Jeffrey McDonald. He's an executive. I think I was in 5th grade. And people used to always walk with me to the hotel or walk with me to the beauty school. And he tapped me, right? And then ran. I picked up something right there by the hotel. And I wasn't but in the 5th grade. Right. I picked up something, but I know he wasn't, because my mother had already told me, don't nobody put their hands on you. No kind of way. And your privates are hitting. One boy hit me one day, and I think I tried to pull his ear off. I think he ended up being in the life. So that was another situation. Kevin, he, God rest his soul. Yeah, but we had a nice little fight out there on the street, and I was little. So you only listen. You only have to be being an attractive individual. I was never raised to think that I was better than anybody. I didn't see that. That I look better. I never had a complex about being a short woman, because my mother had my self-esteem so high that I was grateful for being able to see, walk, hear, and feel. And watch this. As I got older, I never had a gentleman ask me for some more height. Y'all get that, right? Y'all get it? Nobody said you ain't tall enough. Okay. I'm just saying. I never experienced that. So I know people have these different complexes.
Great Puerto Rican writer Pity Thomas said, walk tall or walk it or don't walk at all.
I just never had any complexes. I've had some issues with why I didn't accomplish more than I did, based on what I went through with my mom in the mansion at 20 years old. But I was young. I did not. And now God has come full circle even in that. And the person that's developing it has talked to my son about carrying on the legacy of my mother's business in the mansion. So everything is coming around full circle. What you don't know is Godfrey Kruger, who built the mansion, also used to be a commissioner for the city of Newark. Look at God. Now my name is on the wall in the city of Newark. Godfrey Kruger was the builder of the mansion, and now the daughter of the third owner. So I have to start looking at things in a positive way, to be the example for the young people, to let them know No matter how far down you think you are, there's nowhere to go but up, and nothing can stop you if you persevere. The only thing that can stop you is you. If my mother came here in the 30s, when black people, African American, brown people, whatever you want to say, were having a hell of a time, forget a business. All you could do was be a maid or a funeral director, you know, or a domestic.
1930s, we went into depression, and that was
But
a tough
major depression.
But I do want to. Well, first of all, I love
This was a
this.
great
yes,
hour.
it's 7 o'clock.
You
Gotta do
really
a
got a
part
chance
two.
to unpack. This was a great
Yes,
hour.
absolutely. Because
I
I
love
learned
you guys.
I learned so much.
It's 7:01. We got to do a part two with my other colleagues. They'll be on next month. I miss Minister Abdul Haq Muhammad and my brother Pastor Ali, Pastor in the Hood. Not two guys that you have made room for. But I sure love you, brothers. Listen, whether 2 listen or whether 2,000 listen to All Politics Are Local, the truth is somebody's going to learn something, somebody's going to be encouraged, and somebody's going to be moved to do greater just because you open the door and open the minds and open the ears. Listen, if they don't get it today, next week they might think about it and say, you know what, that is really something. So thank you guys, Jonathan and Moses, you, Ed, and Baba, for your courage to do what you do. Now I know it's 7:02 and we got to get off.
Thank you, Roundtree.
Well, thank you so much.
We love you too,
Wait a minute.
We love the
I have
hell out of you, for real.
wait a minute. I got a prayer breakfast coming up. Councilwoman at Large Roundtree, prayer breakfast along with the mayor, October 13th. Reverend Al Sharpton is our speaker. Lorraine Stanzel, it's 9 a.m. If you want tickets, they are free. You can call my office, 973-733-3794. That's on October 13th, 973-733-3794. October 15th, we're doing the first youth interfaith explosion, a day of atonement at Nat Turner Park. Nobody over 30. We're releasing the youth to do what they do: spoken word, singing, praise dancing. We're going to have a little panel discussion with the young people to talk about their issues from 12 p.m. to 7. First time ever. Obalaji Baraka had a conversation with me. I have the group Fire, Samar Bigum, Josiah, Minister Abdul Haq Muhammad, Hilton Rawls III, 13-year-old motivational speaker. And they will all, if there's anyone interested in performing between 12 and 7, please do not hesitate to call 973-733-3794. Empower our youth. Let's make preparation for the next generation, because when we're no longer here, someone is going to have to carry on, or Newark will be a museum. Thank you very much. I love you guys.
Love you too. Love you too.
Thank you, Roundtree.
Right, and that is the end of this segment of All Politics So Local, where we had the disciples, and we are okay. So I'm really honored and excited for our next guest. Right, like we've learned a lot from our last guest. That was wonderful having Councilwoman at Large, Reverend Louise Scott-Rountree, on and talking about her life. And so
we're gonna have a little panel discussion.
But I am equally as excited, right, to have a guest on that we should have had on a long time ago. We should have had this hero, and I'm gonna call Lisa Durden a hero, right? I am, because she is an independent media artist, producer, filmmaker, commentator, motivational speaker, professor. I didn't know you were an actress.
Yeah, I had to tell on you. They don't know this.
Boy, bye. I'm a bad actress. I'm terrible. I took acting classes. One of my best friends, Iris Williams, she was like, "Oh, you should take acting class. You're so outrageous." I said, "It don't transfer when you got other people's words in your mouth." So I did take 2 or 3 acting classes, but I will say that it, as they call it, opened up my instrument for talking. So I'm terrible. I'm terrible.
Well, that is very difficult to believe. At least that is very difficult to believe. It is difficult for me to believe that you are terrible at anything that you attempt to do.
I know, but it does happen.
But if you want to take a deeper dive, I got a hell of a teacher for you.
Oh no, I don't want to take a deeper dive.
You got the presence, the presence. You got all that.
No, I can't do that.
Definitely do it if you put your mind to it. Don't. We know who you are now.
But you're saying that you are busy with lots of projects. You have a lot of things that you love doing. So you have your hands in a lot. I keep looking at Facebook and I look at some of the things that you're in, and really it's open for you to tell us what do you want to talk about of the projects that you want to do or that you're doing. And I'm excited for it. But I just wanted to give you that introduction. I wanted to let everybody know, we are honored. I am honored to talk to Lisa Durden. And
1,000 years, you've never had me on the show. I never think about it.
I know. I had people. You've gotten people on the show. Right. No, talked about the show.
You don't realize my little side hustle is a PR, so I'm a publicist. And a lot of times people don't know that I'm a publicist or a PR person, I won't say publicist, because a lot of times I began with some local politicians, first my cousin Terrence, and then I did, Oscar Sidney James and a few politicians, and then I started to do PR for nonprofit organizations, kind of like by request. So I don't really pursue it because I don't really love doing press releases because I write well, but I might have some messed up spelling up in there sometimes. So I don't want to put out a messed up press release and then it gets printed and it's not cool. But so yes, I'm like, oh yeah, bring my clients on the show. And we just never thought to bring me on the show. So now we're reconnected and I'm so busy like, oh yeah, let's come on the show. So that's cool. But I'm glad to be on the show because the show's been on for a long time and you guys have really done a good job to me doing the kind of journalism that I enjoy. And I don't think journalism has to be like, I'm, Roger Grimsby and I'm, Sue Simmons and I'm, I think journalism is all about integrity. So you can write, you can talk, you can be on the radio, you can be on television talking about Kim Kardashian's butt and still have integrity in journalism.
Right.
Because if you're going to talk about Kim Kardashian's butt, make sure you know if you're going to talk about, is it fake or is it real? You just, as a journalist, I can't just say it's fake unless I actually know who did the surgery, what kind of surgery it was, and all of that, right? So you can talk about any subject you want, something very serious, something not serious, as long as you vet the information, you do your homework. And even then you can make a mistake, but people just reckless. I don't mean like lay people. I see journalists reckless, and I don't mean
lazy.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Say that again.
Lazy.
So you never catch me out there talking about topics, whether I'm writing a think piece, writing an essay, standing in front of people, talking about fun things. I just don't not inform, even if it's a topic that's not going to cure cancer, right?
Right.
Because it's just kind of like it's knee jerk for me. I went to Seton Hall University for journalism, and they taught me that, and I practice all the time. So even if I'm doing a film, I still consider the journalism of it all.
I didn't realize you went to Seton Hall.
Let's go Pirates.
Yeah, you got a lot of good folks out of Seton Hall. You got a serious Seton Hall tradition.
Oh, really? Yep. So I went to Seton Hall University. Yeah, well, here's what it is. So yeah, so I was forced to do many things over the years because we Black.
Right. Right.
So people don't know I don't just. Oh, what'd you say? I didn't hear what you said.
I said, yes, ma'am. We definitely Black. We got to do what we got to do.
And then I check all the boxes: Black, woman, poor, and the list goes on.
Yes, ma'am.
So I began. People who know me kind of, I'll do quick and dirty. I began my career in front of the camera, and I used to host a show called Brick City. I was, the host of that local show, not the documentary. I was one of the associate producers on that, but everything in Newark is called Brick City. So
I never made that connection with you. That was you.
Hi, and welcome to Brick City on today's show. Yes, that was me. I was there for 4 years, from 1998 to 2000. That was me. So yeah, and so what? And I'll just tell you how I got into producing. So, and I'm naming names. We're gonna get there. Al Clark, the director from Cablevision. He doesn't work anymore, I don't think. He works at Montclair State University. And so when I was the host of that show, right around the time that Tiger Woods was kind of really big, and every black kid around USA wanted to be Tiger Woods. So at the time, there was a gentleman I forgot his name now. He had an organization called Renaissance Golf Inc. His wife worked at Prudential Center. She ran into me somewhere, I don't know, Pathmark, when we had Pathmark, supermarket, laundromat, I forgot where. She said, "Oh, I watched you on that show, Brick City. I would love for you to bring my husband on because he has this organization called Renaissance Golf. He teaches black kids how to play golf. And we go to the Weequahic Park, golf range. I don't know what you call it, golf range. And, it's one of the best golf courses in the country." And she went into this whole spiel. And I thought, okay, this is a cool idea. Pitched the idea to Al Clark, not a problem. He said, okay, we'll do the segment. The usual thing happens, you produce, for this show, you kind of do your homework. You make sure you book the day when they're golfing. You bring the cameras and you shoot the little kids golfing, and you talk to them in a sit-down interview about what the organization is and how you get kids to golf. And all of that is a package. Then I write the script for the intros and all that kind of stuff, blah, 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 blah. So I'm in the studio after everything's done. I have an ear prompt in. Ear prompt means somebody in the control room is telling you what to say in your ear, but you have a teleprompter rolling up as well. And so you're talking. But one thing you can't make a person do is say what's on the teleprompter. So I'm talking, and the teleprompter is rolling up. "Hi, and welcome to Brick City. I'm your host, Lisa Durden. On today's show, we have a segment with golfers from Newark called Urban Golf." So Al Clark put Urban Golf as the name of the organization. Now, I was not Lisa Durden I am today. I was Lisa Durden 1.0. I'll tell you ass up these days. I was a little nicer then. So I said, I just thought he made a mistake. I said, "Oh, Al," I stopped, in midstream. It's not live. It's being recorded. I said, "Oh, you forgot to put the correct name. It's Renaissance Golf Inc." He said, "What does it matter?"
Oh.
That part.
Wow.
That part.
Wow.
Right there. Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to take a guess. Like, you did not give the race of the people that you were working with. And I just assume Cablevision, black producer. Can I go out on a limb and say that one
ain't got no
black
color.
person who said that? What was it like?
He's white.
That was a guess. I don't know how I guessed that, but it was just a throw out there that the name didn't matter. And Renaissance, the Newark Renaissance, because back in the 90s, everything was Newark was about the Renaissance, right? We were bringing it back, the Renaissance.
That was a segregated mentality that showed up because Negroes ain't serious about golf. It's got to be it's urban golf. See,
right?
They couldn't have their own identity, and golfing started with a black man by the name of John Chippen.
Okay.
1901.
He wanted to say ghetto golf or probably something worse.
But there's an endowment in the city of Newark for black kids to learn how to play golf for like 100 years. That's even still available today.
So I don't know the details of how the gentleman who started the golfing organization got the funding for that, but nevertheless, it was a segment. So now I wasn't the Lisa Durden that I am today, but I still had enough good sense when I was a child, I was in my 20s, to think, no. So I said, well, no, if it doesn't matter, then change the name to the proper name. That's kind of like, my name is Kunta Kinte. No, your name is Toby.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
You feel me?
Oh,
I'm like, this ain't the Kunta. So I took about 2 or 3 rounds to go, is this a your name is Toby situation? So after about 3 rounds, I began to think he meant to do it. He meant to put Urban Golf versus Renaissance Golf. He meant to change the organization's name, I guess, to send the message in the teaser. These little Negro children. Well, you're gonna see them anyway. Like, it's really, you're gonna see them. They're in the images are there. You shot video, so you don't need to like call it Urban Golf. So I said, Al, it's called Renaissance Golf. Change the name. In other words, I'm not budging. I'm not gonna say what's on that teleprompter, dude. So he said, all right. He was in the back cursing and screaming and banging on stuff. I've been cursed out before. I sat right there. So dropping F-bombs and MF bombs and banging stuff on the computer to change the teleprompter and all of that. You ain't intimidated me We didn't have Ken back then. Karen. He thought I was going to be intimidated, but not really.
Oh, wait. Can we back up for just a second?
Why don't we back up?
Because I'm just curious. He thought that you would be intimidated by someone dropping F-bombs in your direction. Did not know. He did not know. He is very lucky he got 1.0.
That was Lisa Durden in my 20s, right?
He lucky he got 1.0.
In the late 20s, early 30s. That's late 20s, early 30s. So so I just sat right there, because my mother raised me. If you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. Although now she's turning over in her grave because I will tear your ass up verbally.
Yes, you will.
You know I will, girl. And when I do, you're deserving. So you might want to shut the hell up, or you get about to get torn up. So anyway, I just let it slide, but I sat right there and I didn't do it. And he changed the thing. Because how would that have looked? A Black person's behind the scenes, who is the one that pitched the idea. We did the segment, and then the Black person didn't fight to make sure the name was correct. And you're going to see the segment? Dude, really? So that went down, and that was my epiphany. I said, I had always heard about people saying things like, we don't see Black people on TV. We don't have Black roles. We don't have anybody Black directing things. I would hear things like that, but it didn't mean anything to me because I wasn't a producer at the time. I'm just on-camera talent. But that day was my, what you call my defining moment when I said, you know what? I've got to start to produce and make sure I'm in control of the narrative and telling the stories. Because if we wait for them, we're going to keep getting mad at how they tell the stories.
That's
right.
So that's when I did my first documentary called Project Wow. It's still on Central Avenue, the organization Project Wow. And I did it about the organization and the men that they helped and blah, blah, blah. Guerrilla style, no real budget. My first documentary was a feature. I ended up getting in some festivals, and I was on the Michael Basin show when he was in New York, and I was, did a good job with that. The film was so good that an organization called Park Hill Entertainment acquired some footage from my film because nobody had done a film like that but me. But I wasn't known at the time or known at all. And then she brought me in to interview J.L. King because he had been on Oprah and blown up. My film was out long before J.L. King, but when he went on Oprah, the conversation about down low men became popular. So that was my first, film. And that's how I began being a producer. And then after a while, I'm like, I can't keep sustaining this thing because I can't eat. So somebody said, why don't you just go for some freelance jobs? So that's how I kind of went for freelance jobs. Fast forward, my resume, here's my film, award-winning film. And I got hired for my first big job was the series called Brick City, the docuseries that was in Newark when Cory Booker was the mayor. So that was a 5-part docuseries. So got my teeth cut really well in a docuseries. It's a verite series. It's really, really a hard job to follow somebody for a year or two, and you got 5 parts. Nowadays, we see episodes and episodes and episodes, because we live in a binge society. When we did Brick City, that was groundbreaking. Nobody was doing docu-series. They were doing one-offs, 1 hour, 90 minutes, and that's it. Right. We were one of the first to do a docu-series or documentary series. And so fast forward, that's kind of how I cut my teeth. And so without giving my full resume, folks can look at me on. That
was a cutting edge time for this town too. We were in the beginning of days with the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition.
Correct.
The town was on edge with this violence. We had this pretty boy man who was trying to figure out how to handle stuff, but he wasn't around enough. All of that. It was a lot of tension in this town, and a lot of good, honest folks were trying to get at it to try and figure it out, and that captured a lot of it. That was a hell of a piece.
And I'll be honest with you, I caught a lot of a negative, what do you call it? People who were from Newark.
Feedback.
So when I was at the post office, people who knew me, who knew I was a part of the project, not knew me personally, but oh sis, how come you couldn't tell a good effing story? And I took it well because it was true. And so some people got angry because they only showed the negatives, they only showed the crime, they only showed the negatives. Which of course, sure, every big city has negatives. But they didn't show some of the wonderful things people have in Newark. There's some people doing very well in Newark, and I'm one of the people that I don't kill and steal and sell drugs and all those things, and there's many of us that don't, who are educated and all that, and who are not educated, and they're just hardworking people. It's a combination of all those things. So that was acclaimed, but yet not for our people outside of the city of Newark Oh, people loved it. Oh, you were on that when I'm in New York, and I went to China after that for a film. And whenever I was somewhere other than New York, people loved it. Black, white, or green.
Because Lisa, that was at the Sundance, wasn't that just Sun?
That was Sundance. It got nominated for an ACT award. It won a Peabody award. I mean, it was critically acclaimed.
Yeah,
so I say,
was a big deal.
Yeah. So I say to people this once again: when you have white boys doing your story, that's what you're gonna get.
Right.
Now, it's a nuanced thing. The white boys paid my bills. They gave me a check.
Right.
But if Lisa Durden, and I'm being real clear, if Lisa Durden, unknown, these white guys, I can't get mad at them, had production companies for a while, they're up there big. If Lisa Durden, this upstart production company, would have knocked at the door of Cory Booker and said, give me access, I would not have gotten the access.
Mm-hmm. That's real.
So you can't have it both ways.
Right.
So that's that.
Well,
fast forward after that, I began to try to do at least a hybrid. Okay, if I need to make some money and I see an interesting project and I want to apply for it, I'll go for it to make money, but I still am looking for stories I want to pursue, stories I want to tell. As a Black woman telling stories, we can't wait for other people to tell our stories and then get mad how they tell the story.
Right.
So as a Black woman also, it's not just Black woman, our stories are told even less. So now I don't kind of look for them anymore. They kind of look for me. So whenever there's a story that I think makes sense, it could be any story. It doesn't have to be a woman, but I am more excited when it's a Black woman story. So I did Girls Matter about.
I love that. I was going to ask you about. I was getting ready to ask you about that. Tell us the story of behind Girls Matter.
Right. So I met Allison James because she honored me in 2016 with a media award at her award ceremony. So that's how I found out about the organization. I don't have kids, so I don't know all the organizations. And then when I found out about the organization, I said, these people do a great job. So over the years, I kind of became knowledgeable about the organization. I went back to get my master's. I literally finished my master's in 2021. I have I have an MFA, Master's in Fine Arts, from the School of Visual Arts in New York. Clap for me. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes. Yes. So when one of the projects in class was a team project, and the professor said, well, here's a list of organizations. We want you to produce an NGO film, nonprofit organization film for a nonprofit organization in New York. And when you finish, you're going to give it to them for them to use for fundraising. So I said, excuse me, Beth, would it be okay if I do one from New Jersey, because I'm from New Jersey? And she said, well, I'm not going to make the other students go to New Jersey, but if they want to help you, I'll let them go if they want to go. But if they don't, I have a list of names already. I advocated for that. So I went and emailed all the students in the program and pitched the idea. Here's what this is. Here's what they do. Here's some links to some media. I was the press person. And I would love to tell their story. Who wants to be on my team to tell this story? Because we were all in New York. And one guy said yes, and two said yes, and then a young lady, and that's how I got the team. So I told the story as a thesis, a school project that landed as a short, and I went into festivals and won an award for animation and so forth and so on, a bunch of festivals. So that story's told. That story's out there in perpetuity. As long as I live, that story's out there. And lo and behold, one of the festivals, I got turned down. A distributor said, if you want to pitch your idea to get some finishing funds, we're offering $5,000 for filmmakers. Apply. I applied. I didn't get the finishing funds. I kept it moving. I still finished the film. 6 months later, he wrote, "Hi, Lisa. This is Jesse from Light Beam TV. I'm the one that reached out to you about your film. I know you didn't win, but is it still available? We want to acquire it." That part.
Wow.
Oh, that part again.
So Lisa, can I go back? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
go
can
ahead.
you? All right. So, when they wanted to acquire it, were they at least respectful with the price tag? Like, were they at least like
the price tag sucked? I'm gonna tell them my business. So the thing that people want the most when they're filmmakers, whether you're independent or not, is you want distribution. You want your film distributed out to the public, the masses, to see it. Their platform is called lightbeam.tv. Their brand is all good news all the time. So they said, I want to acquire it. So I said, okay, how much? How about $250 for a 5-minute film?
Wait, stop. Hold on. Wait. Wait. Okay, so first they disrespected you the first time. Then they call you up and they offer you they offer you a chicken dinner. They're like,
Wait.
hey, we take you.
My lawyer, my entertainment lawyer, Dwayne Harley, charged me $700 to do the contract.
Right.
So the lawyer cost more than the price that I got paid for the film.
Oh wait, no, time out. And now here's a question though, like real question. Real talk. Real talk. Did you actually sell the film to them? And if so, why? Like, talk to me.
I did. You know, so sometimes you got to take that L. I learned from what's his name? Bang, bang, bang. What's his name? John Witherspoon.
Yes.
I heard him on a radio show on Wendy Williams years ago when he was doing the show with the Wayans brothers, and it was time to renew the contract, and he wanted to go for more money. I think he wanted to go for something like $60,000 an episode, and he was getting paid $30,000 an episode. It was a popular show by that time, and he said, I'm going for $60,000 an episode. He told his agent to, here's his quote, and they were like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna write that character out. He said, whoa. Let's have this conversation. So he said, I learned a lesson that you don't leave no money on the table. So if I had other offers, I wouldn't have left money on the table, but I would have left it on the table. But I said, okay, what is the goal here?
Okay, fair.
To get it out to people in the world, or is it about money? Yes, it's about money too, but they were knocking. It worked. I moved on. It's a one-off. It won't happen again. But I'm being honest with folks. Your first one may not always be big money. And a lot of actors and people will tell you their first big movie, like Taraji P. Henson, when she was in Benjamin Button, I think got paid $40,000 for the film, and she was already kind of known at that time. So you just decide, why are you taking that L? So I wanted to get that out there. However,
by the way, that is like, I asked the question because that's like one of those stories that's like, here's some wisdom, right? It's a tough story, but here's some wisdom, and that coming from you, like you're very thoughtful. You're very thoughtful. You plan. You try to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think that often you get the credit for being as thoughtful and contemplative as you are. Right. I know you to be an incredibly thoughtful, incredibly contemplative person. Actually,
work speaks for itself. The work's got the range,
and so like that just thinking that went by that, right? Because here I am having one reaction, it's like, you must have told them to go to hell, right? And you're like, wait,
hold up.
Right.
And I've learned from all kinds of people. So yes, this, we all kind of like can bend and bow for things we want to bend and bow for. So I felt like this story's bigger than me. It's bigger than money. Right. When I die, it'll be out there with these Black girls. Because her organization, Girls Live, Love, Laugh, has all kinds of girls in it, but she's a Black woman. And of course they have a lot of girls of color. So I felt like, let me just put the story out there. I found a distributor. Let me just run with that whole situation. So that was that. Last but not least,
Lisa, let me ask you a question.
Go right ahead.
There's the upfront money, but is there money, right, like, for instance, every time I see this movie on TV, will you get a check? Is there, I guess that would be considered royalties. So,
right.
So, like, if this runs, like, one of my old bosses used to say, somebody somewhere from that works with Law and Order is getting a check someday, because Law and Order is always on TV. So is that the case? As long as that show shows up on a network or somewhere, somebody, you're going to get a check based on whatever you negotiated.
Right. That's the point. Depends on your contract. So in this contract, no. So and what's worse about this contract, when I say worse, it's not like, a lot of money, I'm being honest. So in this contract, the way I'm using layman's terms, the way the contract worked was, not only are you getting it for $250, but you can also sell it to other people who might want to put it on their platform, through your platform, your partners and relationships. But it's not, but luckily it's not exclusive. I can do the same thing too. So okay. I said, since it's not exclusive, I'll let you do it. But they can do it, and I don't even know who they're selling it to. So I had my lawyer put a clause in where, when you decide to sell it to somebody else, I need to be notified. I don't get to say no or yes, but I want to know, where is it? so I can promote it or whatever. So that's cool. And I think they did sell it to one platform, and they tagged me. I was like, okay, and I started spreading the word. So fast forward, what's so interesting is, and this is the last point I'll say about my most recent project, which is Blind Divas, about two blind divas. They happen to be from Newark. Crystal Allen and Naquilla Wright-Prevost has an organization called Eyes Like Mine. And what they do is they have an organization that works with anybody and everybody from the blindness community, where they give resource fairs so they can get connected to information. They have events because they're people too, and they want to show we have abilities too. And they have a Miss Blind Diva empowerment pageant. They have a resource fair. They have the Dancing with the Blind. They do a whole bunch of stuff. So I had known about them again because I met them at an award ceremony where we both were being honored. And then, you know, Crystal walked up and said, "Oh, you are a TV show host. You're an MC. Can you MC the event?" I said, "Oh." She said, "Well, let's have a meeting." And I said, "Okay." She said, "Take my number and text me." I'm thinking, text you, bitch, ain't you blind? Huh. Can you see your text message? I was thinking, I didn't say it. So wow. I luckily that was my inside voice. So right. I didn't know about the blindness community. So I said, okay, text her. I texted her. We met at IHOP in Newark, and I found out there's technology for reading your text messages and all that. So I learned a lot through just the first introduction. So then from 2017 all the way till now, I've been with them a long time. I'm auntie now. I'm a mentor. The same distributor on the day, it goes full circle. And this is my last thing, and we can close it out whenever you're ready to go. The same distributor, Lightbeam.tv, we were on a Zoom finishing up the last negotiations of my contract for Girls Matter. Said, okay, we were closing the meeting. And he said, "Oh, by the way, if you have any other ideas, we're doing a pitch competition. We're sponsoring a pitch competition with African-American women in cinema there in New York. It's a long-time film festival. It's been going on for 25 years. He said, if you have anything, pitch it." I said, okay. And I said, African-American women in cinema, AAI, AWIC, African-American women in cinema. He said, so if you think of something, go on Film Freeway and everything's up there and just, apply. He didn't give me no favors. So I didn't think of anything for a couple of days or so. I'm thinking, the blind ladies are very interesting. Again, stories are all around me. So I pitched it, sent it. You didn't have to pay for it. Paper pitch. I was one of the 8 finalists at the event, at the festival, November 9th, 2021. All the finalists had to do a physical pitch. We were competing to get this $1,500 seed money. It's not even big money to produce another short film. Child, I pitched the hell out of that show. And I said, and before I finish, I want you to meet one of the blind divas, Crystal Allen. Do you have anything to say? My character was in the pitch. We killed it. I had my click. I had my present. Can I share the screen? Had my pitch deck. No one had a pitch deck. Nobody had their characters there. Lisa knows how to get down. So as you know, I won. Mama, I won.
and Lisa, let me ask you, in this networking world where we that don't know the business like you do, so I would think that Lisa would be, trying to get, because flights are decent to Atlanta, and trying to get on Tyler Perry's studio, because it seems that all roads are leading to that studio. Is that something worthy of you doing? And are the opportunities as abundant as they seem at the Tyler Perry Studios? Okay.
I can't speak for Tyler Perry Studios, but in this business, the jobs are not abundant. Mm-hmm. Even if you've got a resume, mm-hmm. it's still kind of like who knows you, and usually it's masculine energy. Not Tyler per se, but 9 times out of 10, the masculine energy, people hire men more as cinematographers. They still hire men more as editors. They still hire, more men as directors, and they hire women as producers, because a producer is a woman job. You do it's very highly administrative. So I made the decision that instead of chasing, they say build it and they will come. Mm-hmm. I could have been in California a long time ago. I have no kids. I don't have no man. I mean, I got a piece of a man that's like, you ain't my husband. So I can leave you and go wherever I want to go. We ain't got no rings. So I could have been in California long before now, or like you said, Atlanta. I'm like, no, I'm in Newark. I have some headway. I was on Chasing News, and I've had other opportunities in front of the camera, which I still love and still do. Why uproot myself? And I have that going. So I said, you know what? build it and they will come. So I want to build my platform where I live. And I'm not saying I won't take a freelance job and go somewhere for 6 months to shoot or whatever, but just moving there, no. So I'm also pitching other concepts, not just documentaries. I have done scripted things where there's a script and actors and we've casted people. I want to dip into that. I'm also pitching concepts. I won't tell them yet because they aren't sold. One of my partners is Tracy Baker Simmons. She did the Whitney Houston story, the Bobby Christina story. She's doing a doc. She did the Tiny and T.I. Family Hustle. She did Being Bobby Brown, that reality show, the first one. So she's my producing partner. We have a couple of projects we're going to be pitching to networks. So I can be successful right where I am. I'm going to build it and they will come. Now, I'm not like the faithful person. I'm not a deity lover. I don't even know if there's a real deity. I'm so stripped down. I don't go to church anymore. I don't do any of that stuff. I try to live in the flesh. I do believe in energy and, all of that. So I feel like, let me just live day to day and just, when I wake up in the morning, do something every day toward my goal and put, and of course, employ my knowledge and all that too. And then, and let that let that be a trajectory, and let's see where that energy takes you. But yes, I am doing other things, so I don't feel the need to chase talent. I'm be okay up in here, and not a job there. I would go there for the job.
And let me ask you 2 more questions.
Sure.
Well,
real quick,
we do have people in the thing.
Okay. All right.
All right. No, but we're gonna ask. We're gonna ask.
All right, so I'm going to close with the what are you listening to?
Donna, I'm saying that the question you were gonna ask, you could ask. I mean, ask that, but you just made it seem like I
was going to close with it. That's why I was going to compact it. I was going to compact it all together. I was going to compact it all together. I was going to say Kenneth, I forgot Kenneth's last name, usually did that film festival. Is that still going on in Newark? And then I was going to ask you if it hasn't been, and if it hasn't been asked already, the exit from ECC, has that made you a better Lisa? And then my last is, what music, hip hop artist, individual or group are you listening to these days that are inspiring you to do the work that you do?
Well, I like how you slipped that one in. That could be a whole segment in and of itself.
Yeah, right. You got that, right?
Right.
You did it right.
Right.
So you can just come straight at me. I don't care. So really quickly, the first one was.
Is Kenneth still doing the film?
Kenneth's still doing the Newark
International Festival.
Yeah,
let me work on that.
So it did happen in September.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Newark International Film Festival.
Yeah,
right.
The Newark International Film Festival is still going on. They actually selected Girls Matter for last year's festival. So that was good. Now, the Essex County College situation, when they fired me for going on the Tucker Carlson show to stand up for Black Lives Matter.
Don't get me started.
That was the best Lisa you're going to ever get, because I tore his ass up.
Okay.
I was there supporting Black Lives Matter when it wasn't popular. The unfortunate thing about people, when Black people stand up for what we believe in, we got to make white folks comfortable. But why? They make us uncomfortable. So there's something wrong with me. There's no shame in the game. If I had to do it all over again, I would do it the same way, because what people don't realize is I'm never on TV talking reckless. I write my talking points. I'm a journalist. And what I do is, when I talk on television, I want to sound familiar. I want you to understand the words coming out of my mouth. So I don't use big words. I don't have to prove my degrees. I want to make sure a 5-year-old understands words coming out of my mouth, and a person with a PhD. So there's no better Lisa than that Lisa. In fact, actually, I need to be more of that Lisa. So I'm somebody that should have been celebrated for going on that platform in that building, to go in that ring and box the hell out of that white boy and walk off the platform.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Clap for that. And lastly, my
That's why I said she stuck that one in. That's the whole segment. That's a 30-minute segment.
You see a flex or two. She's a good athlete too, right? We ain't talking about that.
the one of the best rappers of all time, and I'm not gonna put gender, just period, is Queen Latifah. Who you calling a bitch? UNITY. UNITY. That's a unity. UNITY. That's my rap girl. And sing.
Ride, my queen.
Right.
Ride.
All right.
But I can come back and talk more stuff. But that's
we miss you. Yes, we miss you. Yes.
you have got to come back, right? Like you've got to come back.
I
And that was funny putting that in right there, right? Like,
and she did, and she handled it in the time. Yes,
that's what a journalist does. They got to answer that question. She knows going to get mad or not. Jesus,
right.
That works. You got to get it in.
Fair enough.
You did that.
But we got to have you back just to talk about that, right? At some point, because as I said, you're kind of like that's why I said you're like a local hero. You're kind of like one of my heroes.
Thank you.
Like seriously, right? Like when you did that, went through that, all that stuff. Like I didn't know you well before. Like I don't know you well. I didn't know you well before that. But just seeing you in that light, doing your thing, I just felt like proud of you. Just as a Norker, proud to know you even in the way that I do. So. Thank you.
And thank you all for inviting me. I've been knowing Zaid for a long time. In fact, when we had that whole thing, Zaid was right there. That black brother was right there supporting me. I was like, this is a man right here.
And that's
a man.
And you taught me, because I came and I was like, see, Lisa, I just want to know if I could schedule a meeting, because why you got to schedule a meeting for them? Let them come to me. I was like, okay. Like, she really no.
I didn't call no pastors.
That's right.
Pastors call me. I'm a woman. You call me pastor. You up at that school fighting for that president up there. Did he call you? Why am I calling you?
She did not.
She's a man from Chicago. You want to go fight for a man from Chicago to keep his job?
Right.
Now he works in New York at another college. Did he call you?
All that. Yes, she did. I was like, okay, yes, okay. I had a great lesson that day. Yes.
Honey, and spit was coming out of my mouth. Now we got the COVID. I won't do the spit anymore, but Yeah.
Fair.
No, I wasn't mad. It's all love.
That's right. I understood it. That's right.
That's right.
Amen.
Now he knows how I roll. He knows.
That's right.
I know. Well, anytime, let me come back anytime. And I still got a Jonathan talk to you about the class. I haven't forgotten.
Absolutely.
We can do Zoom. They said we can do Zoom. I figured out how to do Zoom.
All right. Sounds good. Good.
Awesome.
All right. Take care. And again, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
why?
Absolutely. All right, so that is another segment. I love Lisa Durden. I think that everything she's done has extra importance, and we got to have her back just to talk about what happened there. Right. Absolutely. So we have the next segment on. I will let Zaid introduce this next segment that we have on right now.
Wow. Well, I'm really honored to have three power. We just had this is the Night of the Queens. We should just call this the Night of the Queens, right? we had our sister Reverend Roundtree come on in the absence of her colleagues, and we just had a shop talk and let this sister unpack the shoulders that she stands on, and it was powerful. It was beautiful. And then right behind her, we had Lisa Durden, right? Who's got iconic dimensions to who the hell she is. And we are proud of her, right? And she's really she's gone through some stuff to be who she is, and she's had the character and the strength to do what she does in her own inimitable way, and just, as a standard bearer for what she does in terms of this particular craft, right? Powerful sister, right? Now, we got three here. We got a trio here, right? Because we also have to protect our queens, and our queens have to protect themselves. One of the things that came up in a tangential way in our first segment was the question of domestic violence, right? And it's a problem. It's a problem that we got to deal with. And Kelsey and Maria, I want y'all to know this. This particular show is based in Newark. And Newark is supposed to be one of the model cities doing some incredible work around the question of violence intervention, violence reduction, and violence interruption, right? Good stuff is going on, right? And you're going to meet one of our long-standing runners on why that is. And in this, we do not let the question of domestic violence be minimized, right? Monday, is an action that is taking place that has become an institution around the question of domestic violence in New York City called the Brides March. September 26th, 22 years ago, right? A young woman by the name of Gladys Ricard was getting ready to walk down the aisle, right? And in the elegant way that our queens do when they walk down the aisle. And somebody who was in her past just could not deal with that. She was not walking down the aisle with her, and walked into the church and took her life. In that moment, the trauma, the outrage, the madness of that particular act became a national story, because underneath the story was the fact that, the question of domestic violence simply has not been developed at that point the way it should be in terms of how systems should respond to that. And it triggered some things, right? And some of the women who were close to that, including some of her family members, decided to pick up this thing called, we're going to tell this story. We're going to tell this story in a way that brings people together. We're going to tell this story and lift up people doing things about this, right? And we're going to do it for as long as necessary. So 22 years later, every year on September 26th, there's this long march from Washington Heights to El Barrio called the Brides March, led by women wearing bridal gowns in honor of this young woman who lost her life on what was supposed to be the day of her life, right? To dramatize what's wrong and still what's limiting about how this country and the systems responsible for stopping stuff like that still has a ways to go, right? One of the organizers, Maria Lozado, is here. Kelsey Hidalgo, who I'm proud to work with on my day job with Equal Justice USA, lost a family member to this stuff, right? And you're going to meet Pamela McCauley, who's one of our long distance runners and teachers, trainers, organizers, and advocates around that here locally. So let's get it in, right? Let's get it in. Maria, let me start with you. You one of the organizers.
Thank you.
Let me start with you. You're the organizers of the Brides March. Now, I tried to set the stage, but I need you to tell the story and what that means to you and the women who have organized this, and how that's been rolling, and what y'all need.
Well, thank you so much for having me here and for your interest in the issue of domestic violence, because in order for us to end domestic violence, it takes all of us. This is not a women's issue. This is a societal issue and a community issue, and it will take all of us to eradicate it. So just as a way of background, I am Maria Lizardo, and I have been doing this work with the Brides March since its inception in 2001. But actually, Gladys Ricard was murdered on September 26, 1999, as she was getting ready in her home, in front of her family and friends. And she was murdered there in front of her son, too. And the batterer was her abusive ex-boyfriend, something that she kept quiet, and this happens often in domestic violence, where the survivors keep this from their relatives, from friends. This isolation keeps them from really speaking up and speaking out. The shame, fears of being judged. So when she was murdered in 1999, it really was a topic of conversation in the community, because he was a prominent leader in the community, because he had resources. And so the community was divided. There were those who supported him, how could she have gotten married or was going to get married to someone else? And then there were the activists who were saying, no, he needs to be held accountable for what he did. So 2 years later, in 2001, Josie Ashton, a Dominicana living in Miami, Florida, was so moved by this case that she wanted to raise awareness on domestic violence and walk from Gladys's home in Richfield, New Jersey, to Florida in her wedding gown, raising awareness, taking 2 months of her life to raise awareness as she walked down to Florida.
She did that by herself, too.
She did that by herself, yep. She planned it out, stayed at local shelters, and really it was a rallying call for folks to, look, domestic violence is real and women are losing their lives. And so the first Brides March was organized, and our goal that day on September 26, 2001, was just to walk from Gladys's house in Richfield, New Jersey to Flushing, Queens, where she was going to get married. We planned 33 miles. It wasn't a lot of us. It was a small group of us. And everything that we do, we get permission from the Ricard family. Gladys was theirs. And they have turned their grief into action. They have turned their grief into something that is larger than all of us, into a movement. And so we walked that day. I was part of that group. You know, we walked from Jersey into Washington Heights, you know, into Queens, doing what Gladys was to do that day. And along the way, we got a lot of stares. You know, what are these crazy people doing? That day, it was only Josie in her wedding gown, and the rest of us had T-shirts that we made. So maybe about 30 of us in total walked that day. And along the route, we saw the looks that people had. And we realized that this was larger than one day. And so ever since then, every September 26th, we march, regardless of the day of the week, regardless of the weather, regardless of what is going on in the world. We march to remember Gladys, to honor all the other victims that have lost their lives as a result of domestic violence, and to let survivors know that they are not alone. There is a community of activists, of nonprofits, of people who care about them. So they need to know that they are not alone. And if they come forward and seek help, we are there to support them, because our goal is to end the cycle of violence. And our commitment is to continue to march every year on September 26th until we eradicate domestic violence. And so we start in Washington Heights, we loop into the Bronx, and we go end in East Harlem, walking through some of the communities that have some of the highest rates of domestic violence. Because for us, it is important to be in our communities, to let our survivors know that we are there for them.
I shaded some of that. I shaded that. Right? Yes. Thank you. Kelsey. Long
Hi,
live
Pamela.
our
Thank you for having me.
right. Long live our butterfly. Our butterfly was your sister. Right.
Yes.
Tell us about your sister and how you were brought to this walk.
First of all, thank you for having us here. And by us, I mean my family. We stand strong with the Ricard family. In fact, we met and we were empowered by the Ricard family to create Long Live Our Butterfly. Our butterfly, who is my sister, my ancestor, she was murdered.
Say her name.
Her name is Ramona Elizabeth Rodriguez. She didn't like the
That's the
name
Bob of
Ramona.
me, baby. That's just how I get down. We got to lift the names up. Come on, go as you were.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, Ramona.
Elizabeth Rodriguez.
Okay. Thank you.
She was murdered April 23rd last year. Today is actually a year and 5 months. Today is magic because she was murdered on a Friday, and today is Friday the 23rd. So Friday was her favorite day of the week. Weird, but that was actually the day that she ascended. And so a lot of things in common between Gladys's situation and my sister. She was separated, no longer with the person that decided he was powerful enough and God to take her life. And it was when she became a butterfly. She actually referred to herself as a butterfly when she was able to seek help and find ways to be free. In fact, she said something to me in Spanish. It's called, in Spanish you say, la libertad se puede saborear. In English, it sounds a little weird, but it means, it translates as you can taste freedom. And so this
That
is
ain't
how.
weird, baby. There ain't nothing weird about that.
That's right.
Go on.
That's how we became with Long Live Our Butterfly. She is our heroine. She is actually someone who we as a family have made it our mission to tell her story. Just like the previous young lady, Miss Durden, that was on here, said, we have to take the narrative of our own story. And she is ours. She is ours, and she will always be ours, and she will not be forgotten, and nobody will tell her story but us and our community. And so it is with great honor that I say, on behalf of my family, that on October 1st, we are joining forces actually with Maria in Nimick, where we're going to do the Shine the Light March. And we're going to end the march at 167 in Audubon, which is where my family was born and raised, and where my sister took her last breath. And we are going to co-name the street to 167th and Ramon Elizabeth Rodriguez. It is a place where all victims, families, all survivors are going to be empowered. And that's not just my sister's name that's going up there. It's all of the survivors. It's all of the family members. It's the children that were behind, the grandchildren that will never see my sister smile. They will no longer be in the family functions, but there will be a physical location where they will all live. And that will be a reminder for the community as well. That
I just there's a couple of things very very quickly just to fill in some gaps, and I see is Maria's organization, Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, right?
Yes.
I want you to tell the story on how you got to that point, because these things just don't happen overnight. I'm sure I want you to tell the story of what went into getting the community and the leadership in that community to yes, let's do this.
Are you asking me about
Yeah.
it?
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Well, with the help of Nimick, of the Ricard family, we created we collected signatures. We spoke to all the organizations in New York, at least in the Washington Heights, Inwood area. And honestly, it was just the community. They just kept coming to my family. We have a long history of undocumented family members in Washington Heights, and they hide a lot of information, just like Gladys did. She didn't tell the family a lot of things that maybe if we would have known, maybe we could have prevented, right? And so here we are now, and now we have Gladys. Now we have so many in between, and now Elizabeth, who are no longer with us. So the community came together. They gave signatures. They asked for T-shirts of my sister. And like I said, the Ricard family, they have been very supportive with our family, holding space for us, guiding us, whether it's when we're going to court or did we really need an organization? We weren't even prepared to have an organization, and everybody's just coming together in the community. My sister was someone that really enjoyed unity, and so it's interesting how this is happening now. We're all coming together, and we're very proud to be supporting the Brides March on Monday, because it has a lot of symbolism for us as well. We're mainly Catholic, and when you do your vows, you say, to death do us part. But let's look at that definition a little bit deeper. And so when we march on Monday with the Ricard family, we are honoring Gladys, and her story should be told by her family, by her community that support her and that have devoted their time, effort, love, and care to raise her name the way it should be. And I'm leaning towards the victim shaming that has happened on both Gladys and my sister.
And if I may add, we've gotten to this point where the community has come together, but it's taken a lot for us to get there, because 22 years ago, 24 years ago, when Gladys was murdered, she was blamed for causing her own murder. And that is a narrative that we cannot stand for. It is a narrative that we need to fight.
That just talking about.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so it's taken a lot of work on the community level to get to a point where, yes, Elizabeth's name will be there on 167th Street, and the community came together to make sure that it happened, and it recognizes that domestic violence is a crime. It is a disease that is really impacting our communities. It impacts our kids. It impacts, society, and that we really need to work as a collective. So that code naming came about, the council member has to make sure that they're on board, community members. There's other organizations. NIMIC is not the only one. We have the Dominican Women's Development Center. We have the Juan Pablo Duarte Foundation. So we have a lot of groups that are on the ground doing this work to support survivors and their families, because that at the end, they end with the trauma. They have to live with that loss for the rest of their lives.
And then I wanted to lift up the organizing that comes into that, because in the end, this is about empowering our community, right?
Yes.
And these are indeed powerful gestures of empowerment. They're wonderful gestures of empowerment, right? Let me begin to localize this now. The great Pamela McCauley is on this call, and she has been doing this work for better than 35 years. And we also have an institution that we couldn't get everybody on tonight at one time, but we also have an institution that came out of a domestic violence situation here. It's very close to our mayor, the Shani Baraka Women's Center. The mayor lost his sister to, walking into an act of domestic violence, right? So that's very much a part of the ecosystem of violence intervention that we're trying to develop here. But the pioneer of that work is this queen right here, who I'm about to bring into this conversation, Pamela McCauley. Pamela, let's localize this conversation. How do we address this question here in these streets, in this community that we call home? Tell us about what's going on in terms of the walk that you're on.
Well, it all begins, with the conversation. 25, 30, almost 40 years, I have been doing this work. And when I started, it was all about law and order. Our programs, the name of my program is the Office of Victim Witness Advocacy, and we are located within the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. Every prosecutor's office in the state of New Jersey has an Office of Victim Witness Advocacy. And when this program started in the late 1970s, 1980s, they had really no conception of where victims fit in this justice system, in a justice system that is inherently hostile towards victims and focus on offenders. Now, I'm not saying that it's an either or even a binary. What I'm saying is that there needs to be a parallel system of justice, one that protects the rights of the accused and those who are offending, and having resources dedicated to their situations to address their hurting, so that they aren't out here reoffending and causing others pain. But we also need to dedicate resources to those who have been exposed to trauma, and making sure that there is a dialogue, and there are resources, and that there are collaboration, not only with families, as we have seen here, but with agencies and systems of care that are primarily focused on those who have been exposed to trauma. What we're doing in the prosecutor's office, we are not satisfied with people kind of just haphazardly trying to access services and navigate these systems of care that are not really focused on making sure that those, and especially in communities of color, that there is an investment in our health and our well-being, and in our ability to thrive in the community. So what we have been doing in my office, and we are really being very targeted with putting resources and services out in the community. We have just purchased a mobile
crisis response vehicle. It's a big blue van. And we are, out in the community. The van is fully equipped. It has Wi-Fi generators so that we can have our laptops and printers and scanners, Wi-Fi, so that we can connect with VPN, so that we can connect with our systems in the office. So people have questions about their cases or are in need of services, that we are better able to address those needs. And people don't necessarily have to come to the prosecutor's office or even the police departments, that we are out posted up, in communities, neighborhoods, on corners, so that we are more visible. Our presence is more visible to, to the community. A lot of times what we think as providers, that we know we have been doing this work, and while we are engaging the community, sometimes what people will tell us as systems representatives are different in what the conversations that they're having, within their homes and within their neighborhoods. So we have spent dedicated resources to develop an evaluation tool, because if you don't ask, you don't know. And what we want, that is what we want. We want to know. We want to know what's going on. We want to know how we can better assist, how we can better support, how we can empower those who are navigating journeys of loss and disempowerment and isolation. We also have we're getting ready to launch a telehealth component, whereby people are going to be able to access, on whether it's on our website, our mobile app, through their phones, their tablets, and they're going to be able to contact us and actually have appointments, set appointments, but be able to get in contact with us in real time. We also have set up a mailbox, because we realize that especially with homicides, making sure that we are contacting victims' families in a timely manner, whether it's, at the immediate aftermath of the horrendous event, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or even a year, that we are creating systems within the office so that we are better able to track these cases and reach out, checking in with families, one, with information about their cases, but a lot of times anniversary events, life events are triggering, and we want to be part of that solution. And then the last thing, because I'm talking quickly, our sanctuary program.
I was going to let you get away without that.
Yeah, our sanctuary program is getting ready to launch. So the sanctuary program started in 2010, and since it's a program that actually started as a result of a domestic violence homicide, suicide in a family that were very much entrenched in their church culture. And I got a phone call one Sunday morning from my supervisor, and she says, the deacons, deacon and deaconess, nobody had any idea. And it's just what Maria was saying. People are embarrassed. There is a shame that is connected with victimization. No one knew that this family was struggling, and the perpetrator killed his wife and then killed himself in the garage. And the church family, that community, very tight knit, were at a loss. And what we did is we worked with the family to set up a system to equip people, whether it's in our churches or barbershops or nail salons, places where people they're having these conversations, knowing that they might not want to, to report what's going on in their lives to the police or to the prosecutors. As I said, we are a community-based and a community-focused, trauma-aware organization, and we want to be part of this solution. Since 2010, over 500 people have graduated this program, and we are equipping people who are business leaders, who are educators, who are working in law enforcement, in schools, social organizations, people who just have a passion and a concern for those who are who have fallen victim to intimate partner violence, what to do, how to engage, what organizations and resources are out there. One of my projects, that I'm really passionate about, is developing like almost like an underground railroad, because a lot of times relocation is not moving someone down the street and around the corner. We have to set up systems that if we are going to help people relocate and rebuild their lives, they have to have systems of care that are invested in their success as well as their safety. So we are developing networks, not only within Essex County, but beyond our borders, beyond our state borders, on the left coast as well as the right coast. So you all can stand by as to some of our other projects. And one of the reasons why I'm so thankful to be here is that we can't do this work alone. As it has been said earlier, that this is not just violence against women, is not just a women's issue. This is a community issue. This is a men's issue. It is a crisis in leadership. It's a crisis in leadership and with people with power. We have to redirect these systems of power and privilege in order to ensure that we are putting resources in building systems so that ultimately we are going to be able to eradicate domestic violence. I know I am working for the day where we don't need these types of services, that we can all live in violence-free communities in peace and comfort and in communion with others.
Pamela,
Indeed.
one
Go
of
ahead,
the things I wanted to ask, and when we do domestic violence, you have the victim and you have the person perpetrating the crime, but I also, especially in domestic violence, the resource for the person, because oftentimes they may have come from a background where they had domestic violence done to them, and now they're acting out what happened to them. So in this case, while we're here talking about your beloved loved one, I just want to know, are there services on both sides, even though there are consequences that have to be dealt with, but are there still resources to ensure that this will not continue to play out generationally?
Well, we have come a long way in terms of, our positions of law and order and 3 strikes you're out, and, just put people in the solution is further incarceration. We know that does not work, crime rates, and especially those rates of intimate partner violence, continue to soar. So we need a new approach. So in our office, as well as other prosecutors' offices, we have diversionary programs. We have drug courts. We have mental health courts. We have courts and services that are targeting these vulnerable populations, veterans, have people who are coming back and becoming and reintegrating into the community are having struggles. So it's not just about putting people in jail. It is developing programming collaboratively, so that we are able not only to support victims of crime, but also to address the underlying causes of intimate partner violence and support, because nobody gets up in the morning and says, gosh, I want to be a victim, or, I want, to abuse the person and the person that I love and my children. I just don't believe that. I believe that people are inherently good, but lose their way. We want to put services in place to help them regain that sense of value, that frame of reference, that of their personal worth and subjectivity and autonomy, having choices to offend or to not offend. Like I said, I think we need to get away from this binary and find ways that we can just continue to support families, and thereby that's going to be reflected in how we are better able to build communities and communities of care.
Because I know at one point, Pamela, there was domestic violence court, but that funding had went away, and now they just kind of put domestic violence cases in with all the other cases, and that's not effective anymore. So I hope the municipalities have gone back to where they do have domestic violence court.
Well, we do.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, we have, and especially, I am not an expert in bail reform, but I do know that when someone is arrested and they they appear in the first appearance court or a criminal judicial processing court, that there is a track and identifying people who have been charged with domestic violence related offenses as opposed to those that are non-domestic violence related. And we have a domestic violence court specifically in these pre-trial stages. So we have dedicated units within our office that is just for domestic violence and child abuse and sexual assault. These people that are assigned to these units have a level of expertise, not just in prosecution, but also investigations, so that we are better. And it's, yes, we want to hold offenders accountable, but we also need, because a lot of times what victims want is the abuse to the abuse to be interrupted, but very practically they want the offender home. We're not in a position to judge. We believe when people come forth, we believe them. And we also operate from the position that those who have been exposed to this type of trauma know what's best for themselves and for their children. We are there to support them in those decisions.
And if I may add, city and law enforcement have a role to play, but we have a role to play as well, which is to start breaking down these gender roles. We need to stop promoting how girls should act or how boys should act. We need to start role modeling what healthy relationships look like and really break down those stigmas. You know, if your boyfriend is jealous or your husband is jealous, that's what love means. And so we have a responsibility to really break down these barriers and really focus on what healthy relationships are. And we need to start doing this when kids are young, because otherwise we're not going to break that generational domestic violence. And what, you know, kids are seeing at home, they will eventually either be the batterer or be a victim themselves. And so we really need to start, you know, focusing on education in the schools and the churches, just everywhere, just, you know, breaking down these gender roles and stereotypes.
Let me right on. Let me because as we begin to wind this segment, let me ask you this: let's put it this way. You talking about education, right? Uh, Also, we've got, and this is a hip hop talk show, right? A hip hop political talk show, right? And one of the misogyny that is running through hip hop culture is something that is yet even to be meaningfully talked about, right? What do each of you have to say about how do we raise these and have these conversations within performance culture that glorifies violence often more than not? In order for some folks to think that that's a good way to make money when people are wind up getting hurt behind narratives that are really just off the hook, right? And then we'll wind down, and each of you can respond to that.
Well, so we we say, if you see something, you say something, but we also need to do something. We have over you, Baba Zaid, you talked about misogyny. We can have education and we can model healthy relationships, but we also must equip all of us, but men in particular, because men are the ones that can hold men accountable. And equipping men and young boys and women and young girls not to wait until there is a situation to intervene, but to intervene well before and to have these conversations and what is not okay, and to check people about their language, about their posture, even in terms of violence interruption, which is what that is your area, of expertise. And just as we are intervening in situations, conflicts on our street corners, we need to be doing the same in our households. And I will always say that my voice, I will always speak up, but there are times when I need the men who are also part of this circle in this conversation to also step up and to take this lead. As I said, misogyny, the objectification of young women and young men. This is a crisis in leadership, and those with the power and the privilege can make the choice to interrupt these types of behaviors, and that's where the responsibility must come.
Maria, Kelsey, what say you?
I think Pamela definitely hit it on the mark. I think as it relates to hip hop, we need to stop objectifying women. We need to stop glorifying violence. And those who have a platform can use it and should use it to promote equity when it comes out. Some of this is also by economics, and women are historically, particularly women of color, are always underpaid and therefore sometimes tied by the economics to their abuser. And so how do we use the different platforms to promote, pay equity, to stop glorifying women, and to objectifying women, and to really stop glorifying violence?
Kelsey?
I agree with everything here, everything you guys have mentioned. I couldn't agree more. I want to emphasize education and resources, and it's one of the goals for Long Live Our Butterfly to work with the schools to provide resources, educational sessions, especially with the undocumented and those who have English as their second language. We tend to glorify the stars, the rappers of life, because it's like, wow, I would love to have that life, but what does that really mean, right? When we have some of these rappers in domestic violence on Instagram going live, cursing out their partner. And so that normalizes this behavior. And let's all be honest, domestic violence is learned behavior. Hurt people. Majority of those who have caused harm are victims of a sort,
themselves.
are survivors of a sort.
Mhm.
And so it's changing that lens. Shout out to Equal Justice USA. I work in an amazing organization. One of the main things that they work with is VRI, violence reduction initiatives. We have to raise the volume on awareness. We have to work on prevention. Shout out to Common Justice, who we work very closely for the fair access to victim compensation that they're trying to pass. That helps shifting the narrative of having to make a report for it to be considered
Report to
an
the
actual
police.
offense. Right. We
Mhm.
can work with the schools. We can work with the psychologists that half of these victims are actually seeing. It shifts the lens even on policing, which that's a whole other conversation that I know we don't have time for, so I won't go into that. But I raise everything that both Pam and Maria and even you, Baba, have mentioned today. We have an epidemic. I mean, this has been the biggest epidemic that has lived within our families for years. Like I said, Monday we're doing the Brides March. We're supporting the Brides March at 100. We are now doing the 22nd anniversary of this march, and yet I just lost my sister last year. So the volume is not loud enough.
Because there is no community outrage. Where is the outrage? We can educate, we can talk, but until there is a collective outrage, when we say as a community, we say no more. Listen, we have campaigns, Mothers Against Drunk
Man.
Driving. Listen, we went and those mothers, they marched. There was an outrage. We wear seatbelts as a result of legislation and an outrage for lives that could have been saved because people pull a piece of cloth, fabric across their chest. There was outrage then. We need a similar outrage when it comes to violence against those who have historically been marginalized and have been erased. Where we have got to get mad. And when we get mad, we put our money and our resources behind it and we change, as you say, the lens and the trajectory of our communities. What's missing is the outrage.
And Pamela, before we have our DJ come up and ask the question, I put some links inside of the private chat, and they are for the annual legislative conference coming up next week. The last one is
Whose
the one
annual legislative
the Congressional
conference?
Black
Make it
the,
plain.
Black Caucus.
yeah, the Congressional Black Caucus. And I think you have a room where everybody is, that if y'all can get your team together and and somebody from the team can take one day and drive down there and get some information in somebody's hand. But that last one where it says the PDF, it has the schedule of all the different events and different sessions they're going to have. If you can copy and share that information with with the people that are working on your project, to let them know that, hey, maybe this is a place where we have everybody in one room and we can use this as an opportunity to push our agenda forward. Because I just going back, and I also put the articles I found out about your loved one, and just reading it just brings and the visual of seeing the sister who was taking on, putting that wedding dress, walking through, and it should raise awareness, raise questions like what's going on, and for us to begin to have conversations, one in our households and two in our communities, and so on and so forth. But I commend you. I want to ask you to continue doing the work and come back and update us. But DJ Rhino has, if you don't have anything before DJ Rhino's question.
Just very quickly, I want to lift up one of my teachers who brought me to the question of the Brides March. Her name is Esperanza Martel, and she's an innovator in this whole work of being trauma informed. And she has something in New York called Casa Beache, Ata Beache. I'm saying it wrong. Now, one of these days we need to get her on. And we've got many roads to go to in terms of just lifting that conversation up here on this particular platform. I wanted to lift her up because she's the one that encouraged me to participate last year. I will participate this year also. Men who want to participate, women wearing the bridal gowns, men are wearing black, right? So I will be participating, and I'm looking to do something. And I will talk with each of you afterwards at some point. November 25th is the International Day to Eliminate Violence Against Women, right? And in New York, my principal responsibility is the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. We walk past the Audubon Ballroom, right? The neighborhood and just was where the street naming is going to be done for Kelsey's sister is right in there. It's just a walking distance from the Audubon Ballroom where Malcolm lived and died standing up for our people. And when he was protective of women in particular, it led to some very serious problems within our community. Right, this is something that folks don't like to talk about. So there are places to go. We're coming back to this conversation, but I wanted to lift that up so it is as participatory as we can make it. Rhino, you can finish. You can finish with our.
And one more thing, Ryan, and is October domestic violence
Yes.
awareness month? Okay,
Yes.
Yes.
But every month,
Yes.
month is
Right.
Domestic Violence
Right.
Awareness Month.
But with that, we you're welcome. Maybe we can schedule some time, and you can come back and update us on how the day went. If so we'll let Zaid take lead on that. But DJ Rhino, that question for the panel.
First, I want to say peace to all of the queens that are on the panel. Peace to all of y'all, and bless y'all for the work that y'all do. Well, I know just earlier you were speaking about y'all were speaking about hip hop and its relation to what's going on in our communities as far as domestic abuse and sexual abuse, domestic violence and stuff like that. I wanted to ask each one of you: is there anybody in hip hop, new or old? It could be an artist or a group. Is there anybody in hip hop who you do feel speaks to your heart and what's going on in the community? Is there anybody? Is there any names or any songs that come to mind that speak to your heart when it comes down to what it is that you stand for and fight for in the work that you do? Anyone can start.
I will say Evelyn Lozada. We follow her in her work with DV. She's a survivor. Her work has some value. And as you were speaking, the song that came to my mind was "Love Is Blind" from Eve.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Bad news. But Love Is Blind, right? And again, similar to what I said earlier, when you marry in church, the vows is till death do us part. What does that mean for the abuser? Till death do us part, right? Is it that they take their life to their hands, or the other partners, and commit suicide? That's not love. You should not end your life. You should not end anybody's life.
Never heard.
Love.
That's right.
So Love Is Blind definitely comes to mind, and the work of Evelyn Lozada came to mind when you were speaking.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
I'm with Lisa. I'm a long time. I've been following Queen Latifah for decades now. I am a fan. I have followed her evolution. I love her awareness. I love that the fact that she has not forgotten, her roots. I love, her lyrics. I love that she loves who she is, that she is body positive, that she makes no apologies for who she is. So that's where, that's where I am. And I heard her speak, and I'm not sure where. We're going back a number of years, but what she was talking about is our ability to engage, and that she listens and engages people from more like a scientific level, like a hypothesis, and not from her personal truth. And she listens, and she's willing to be influenced and swayed. So I think that we can all take something from that message in terms of our listening and the power of engagement. That we engage not to, not to feel good or not to, win a conversation, but to be influenced so that we are better able to connect on soul levels as opposed to just the surface.
Soul level. Love it. Love it. Maria?
Yeah, I struggled a little to think of, but two
That's
things come
real.
to mind.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, I really am. First, my go-to song is always "I Will Survive" by Gloria Gaynor. I think it's the anthem for women, like, and for survivors. Like, I will survive, And then I think about Mary J. Blige. I think about, her upbringing, surrounded by violence, and how she's turned that to her music and puts that out there in terms of her vulnerability, and even the marriage that she was in, and how that sort of evolved and how negative that was toward the end with the divorce. And so I think about her and how fierce she is, and how she is she can be a role model to women.
Yes, I agree. Good choices. And Shaka Khan, every woman.
Yes.
Every woman.
Yes.
That's a perfect.
And Maria, that was a good one. I was listening to, I forgot who to mix, when Mary was singing and she does a whole rap part where she's like, she was going through something back in the day and she called you, and I was just listening to that today, and I was like,
411.
The
411.
I'll tell you. I think I think this one was with, I can't think of, but I was going through, I can't even think now. It was in my head, but I was just listening to it on the way, and she was just saying she started the game in 91, and then she was going through something, but now here I am. Yeah, she was just like, yeah. So it could have been, but yeah, Mary is a sister who has been up and down and up and down. So she was definitely one. Yeah,
absolutely.
Most definitely.
So thank you guys for what you do, and keep doing it. And I hope that the information I gave you, I hope y'all can make the rooms, because a lot of information is there, and oftentimes we need people to understand. And I can see that there was a sister who wanted our young people to understand our history. And one year at the Congressional Black Caucus, actually the sister that do Harriet Tubman, she came in there with a bale of cotton, walking through those rooms, and everybody was like, they didn't understand what it meant to carry a bale of cotton, and she walked those halls, and the young people were just mesmerized. So sometimes visuals are nothing like a visual.
Absolutely, nothing like a visual.
And the women will be in bride's white, and the men will be, we need more of them. The men will be in black, right? Well, I'll see both of you on Monday morning, right?
See you on Monday.
You got work to do, yes, right? It's been a powerful segment. I'm very proud of all of you, and some of us out here, we got your back.
And still lifting. You got to come back and tell us, and lifting her son up, because I think in the beginning you mentioned her son. So we lifting the whole family up, and particularly her baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful, y'all.
And thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we're here for. This is our drum. So that's been a powerful 6 hour Rhino. So we're shifting over now to you, right? You close us out with what's happening in the land of hip hop. right? That we need to be
What's going
brought
on,
up.
y'all?
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, yesterday, I got to start off with Brick City, hometown, where we at. Yesterday was the anniversary of the debut album by Redman called "What the Album." It was released 1992 yesterday. So I got to give
1992. Oh my God!
to give a big shout out to Redman. 1992. At that time I was going to Center for Media Arts in downtown Manhattan for audio engineering. I was learning how to engineer and get my sounds and stuff together. But and prior to that, in actually 1990 or like 89, 90, Tame won from the Artifacts before Artifacts got their deal back when they were still That's Them. Because I did all of the production for That's Them at that time. And Tame brought Redman to my house, around the time when he was still waiting for his deal to get signed. At that time, the contract was still sitting on Russell's desk collecting dust because it took about a year for it to go over. But at that time, Redman was coming through, so he had dropped some verses that he did on EPMD's album. He did that at my house first, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we saw Redman come up. Redman used to be a DJ, before he was MC, he was a DJ, and so the brother came up. I believe his mom's was a teacher, so a lot of people know his mom, Miss Noble, but. Yeah, Redman, he's a staple out here in Newark, man. Ever since he came out in '92 with that debut album, and I also remember at the same time, DOS Effects was on their way out right after Redman. So this is when Hit Squad and EPMD, they were really building up the squad at the time, and ironically, Hit Squad was also between EPMD. They were also going through a breakup. It was the beginning of a breakup too at the same time. So I remember when Redman first came out. It was like his album was kind of in limbo because EPMD, who was the group that put him out, they ended up splitting up. And so he had to go through that whole fight and what side he was going to take, I guess, and how he was going to continue his progress with his album and his career. So, but that album, man, was phenomenal. I remember me, myself, as a rap artist at that time, and a DJ and a producer, but as a rap artist, I remember it was very influential. It was called What the Album. The album was like a journey. Like how some albums, how albums have breaks in between the songs. There was no breaks in between the song. It was just a whole experience that you had to go through. You know what I mean? And so, that was something that really opened me up, to have an experience like that. And he really told his story. He, when Naughty came out and when Latifah came out, they spoke about Jersey, but they just kind of mentioned Jersey like this is where I'm from. But Redman was one of the first artists to come out of Jersey to really talk about the culture of Newark streets, what was going on in the streets of Newark, New Jersey at that time. You know what I'm saying? So
there was some stuff. That was a tough time too, for real.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. That was a tough time, and we're talking about early '90s. So yeah, and he really he drew the picture. He painted the picture of what was going on, you know what I mean? And so we all sunk into that, man. So, big ups to Redman and the debut album, happy anniversary to What the Album, 1992. That was a huge influence on a whole lot of people, man. I mean, here in New York, outside of New York, all around the world. I mean, Redman is a big name right now, and it started with that album. So big ups to my man, Reggie.
I love him acting.
Yeah. Him and Method Man and How High.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on with that T-shirt? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The T-shirt is for today. Today is the anniversary of the Speaker Box Love Below album, which was released today, 2003. And this was a double album by Outkast. So it was kind of like getting a solo album from Big Boy and a solo album from Andre 3000 all in one album, because that's how they marketed it. It was Speaker Box, which was Big Boy's album, then you had the Love Below, which was Andre 3000's album. And for people who were really like intrigued by Andre, because when Outkast was out, after a while, Andre 3000 became like a focal point. You know what I mean? He had he started wearing the turban. He started wearing these different clothes. Word got around that he was in the relationship with Erykah Badu at that time, and so he became a focal point. And so, by the time they put out this album, it was perfect because people really wanted to know what's up with Andre 3000. Like, we love Big Boy. Big Boy is always dope. But what's up with 3000? And the Big Boy fans got to get Big Boy's side also. You know what I'm saying? Big Boy's album was dope. Big Boy's album had a lot of club cuts, a lot of dance cuts that you could, a lot of feel good songs. You know what I'm saying? Big Boy's album had a lot of feel good songs. Andre 3000's album had a lot of feel good songs. There was a lot of introspective stuff, a lot of deep things. He was touching on a lot of topics when it came down to love and relationships and how we perceive love and things like that.
I am for real.
Yeah.
Sorry,
well, Miss Jackson was on the Stank On Your album. That was on the album prior to that. But this album had Hey Ya, which was, that was a big hit of his. He had the video where it was like multiple verses of him, playing different instruments and doing different things in the video. Roses, She Lives in My Lap, Prototype, which is a new song. Prototype gets played in a lot of slow jam sets because it was like a slow mellow vibe. But I mean, he Andre 3000, what he did in that album, he really went into himself. He got into his music side, not just being just a rapper. It was about really touching his, getting into his soul, his spirit.
And they both had acting careers because Andre did. He did the movie with
they did Ottawa. They did the movie Ottawa.
Ottawa, they did. But Andre was he in Four Brothers? Big Boy with the caddy with the
yeah. Four Brothers.
And ATL, and but I mean, So
and Big Boy was in ATL,
Yeah.
So they got their movie chops on too as well.
Yeah, especially I really
this
love
album. Yeah, this album was huge because, like I said, it was like in one album you got to hear both of their stories, both of their perspectives.
But can you believe it's been 20 years?
And this was the album that really shot Andre 3000 like off to the orbits, man. Because once people got to hear Andre's work, they realized what type of an artist, how strong of an artist he really was.
Yeah, but Rhino, what is does it really seem like it's been a full 20 years? Like
30?
It seemed 20, right? Like because 2002, right? The album came out in 2003.
Oh, I thought you said
about 20 years.
Okay.
But close to 20. Does it seem like it's really been close to 20 years?
No, it doesn't.
Like, because I remember, it seems like,
I remember all of them, like fresh. It's still fresh. A lot of those songs are still fresh.
And what's Andre's 3000 like? What's the significance of the 3000?
At that time, I think he was just trying, because everybody was talking about 2000. Everybody was talking about 2K and the 2000 and all of that. I think he was just trying to be like in the future.
I'm
talking about 3,000.
I'm thinking way beyond that.
I'm beyond 2000. I'm beyond that. And he kind of showed that in his work on that album, and in his career, because Andre he's very different, and he's gotten to a point in his life where he's actually had to pulled himself back out from the industry because of how corrupt the industry is and how corrupt it can be to your soul and to an artist, to the soul of an artist. It could be some rough edges, some rough roads when it comes down to trying to compromise yourself with the industry like that. So he's kind of pulled back, and he's just doing him right now. We don't know when the next time we're going to hear music from Andre 3000, but that's okay because for him, he's all right. You know what I mean? Right. But we love Andre 3000. We love Big Boy, and that album is iconic to this day. That album is iconic. So big ups to Outkast for Speak About Your Love Below. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard, it's been going on all week. There's a guy named DJ Academics. Joe Budden had a podcast. When Joe Budden first got into doing podcasts, he had a podcast called The Everyday Struggle. It's called Everyday Struggle. And it was basically him and this brother DJ Academics, and there was a sister that was there. I can't remember her name, but there was a sister that was down with them as well. But yeah, so recently this guy DJ Academic has come out to say some pretty harsh stuff and very incorrect. I have to read it to you. There was originally some audio, but I'm going to read to you what he said. I'm going to try to clean it up as much as I possibly can. He said,
I got some audio here.
You got it? What? Hold on. You got what Academic said or what LL said?
I want to record this.
Oh no, I got what LL said.
All right, let me tell you what Academic said first, and then we can play LL.
Okay.
All right. So this is what Academic said. And this is he was on Twitch when he said this. He said, "Them old rappers, man. Have you seen any of them old rappers who be like, yo, they're the foundation of hip hop, really living good? Them N-words, looking really dusty. I kid you not. And none of y'all try to come for me because I don't F with y'all ends. And I don't F with y'all N-words anyway. So I'm just telling y'all the truth. Every time there be like an old N-word talking about hip hop, you be like, yo, bro, you sure you invented this? Because everybody else in this is looking better than you." And so he's talking to like old heads. He's talking like old heads who the founders. He's talking about the people
originators of hip hop.
Yeah.
The originators of hip hop. The reason why he has money in his pocket.
The reason why he could even use a name like DJ Academics. And you know, I had posted this on my page, like, you know, I haven't seen him ever DJ ever. And to be academic, let's really get into the knowledge. To be academic means that you're doing the knowledge. To do the knowledge means that you're doing the mathematics, the science, and the history of what it is that you're talking about. And he's not doing the knowledge, the science, the mathematics, the history of any of what he's talking about, because if he had known that, he kept his mouth shut, because for him to even exist in what it is he's doing, even on the platform that he speaks on, it wouldn't exist without hip hop and without the founders of that. You know what I mean? So he pretty much sparked up. I don't know if he's trolling or what, but he pretty much sparked up the fire, and a lot of people. I saw Russell Simmons respond back to him. A few people responded back to him. LL's response has been the biggest response all week. Everybody's been reposting LL's response. So y'all can press play on that.
Make sure you're recording this or screen recording it or something so that you guys get it.
It's clean, so you ain't got to worry about no curse.
Live since the pandemic, but this is something that came to my attention. It came to my attention that a DJ, and I'm not going to say any names because I don't think it's necessary. A DJ basically said that a lot of the pioneers in hip hop are, they're dusty, or how can they be the person that invented hip hop if they don't have a lot of money, or if they don't look or represent like they have a lot of dough, right? Let me explain something to you, and say this for you guys. Don't confuse someone's ability to develop a business model. Don't conflate. In other words, don't think just because somebody knows how to get money or fails to get money that they didn't make a contribution to the culture. No one discusses Miles Davis's bank account.
Wow.
We don't talk about John Coltrane's bank account. We don't talk about a lot of even rock musicians, a lot of them. We don't talk about their bank accounts. A lot of great country artists, we don't talk about their bank accounts. This idea that you have to have money or else you don't have any value is a bad idea, and it's kind of like, it's a misinformed way of looking at the world and the culture. There are artists out here. First of all, let me say this. First of all, let's talk about like young artists, right? Who I love. I love the young artists. Let's be clear. I'm very much a guy who embraces the young artists. I believe in every generation. I believe in you. I care about you. Let me say this to you though. Today, you could come up with your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, your 20-year plan. You can go find a manager, you can find an accountant, you could find somebody that means something to you, to help you. You could find a team to help your career go to the next level. When hip hop first started, there were no managers. There were no accountants that believed in it. Record companies didn't even believe in it. Nobody believed in it. How can you make a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan on something that doesn't even exist yet, that people have never even heard of? So just because a couple of these guys and girls and people out here made songs and made music and made contributions to this culture, or even dancers danced and made these contributions go, just because they didn't get rich, just because they weren't able to pile up millions or billions of dollars, does not mean that they didn't make a contribution to this culture. That does not mean that they didn't do something. They created an industry that we all ate off of. That's right. They created an industry that you eat off of. When you go out there and you go monetize your brand, when you go get your whatever and do what you got to do to build your career, when you go out there and negotiate your deals and negotiate your checks and talk tough, guess what? That money, that bread, that food that you eating was created by those same people that you disrespected. That industry was created by them same people that you call in, foul words, foul language. The people that you're referring to. So my thing is this: it's always good. It's always good to get money. It's always important. It's important. It's important to get money. I agree. I'm all about getting paper. I've been talking about it my whole career. But don't ever, ever, ever confuse being rich with making a contribution to our culture. Don't ever play yourself like that again. Because trust me, you playing yourself. Because without these dudes and these girls who started this hip hop culture, a lot of the guys that's out there talking tough, you wouldn't even have a career. We'd be on the corner with a beer talking about what's the next move we gonna make. So I would say, approach this game with humility and be glad and be thankful that these pioneers, exactly, slave mentality. Be glad that these pioneers helped create this culture. And let's show them love. Let's elevate them. Let's celebrate them. That's why I started Rock the Bells. That's why I started this movement. So I wouldn't have to listen to foolish rhetoric about people that changed the world. These people changed the entire world. The whole planet runs on hip hop culture right now. The whole planet, every commercial, everything you could think of is all about hip hop. And there are people out there that started this thing, and I think that they deserve to be honored.
That's right.
I'm gonna leave it right there. I'm not gonna say no names. I'm not gonna say nothing foul. I'm not gonna go at nobody's character. I'm just gonna say, think before you speak.
Wow. That was wild, right?
What I would say, Rhino, a couple of months ago, we were talking about Mike C, and I'm going to go back and repost those 2 videos. Who's the DJ that put that together, Rhino? Remember what Mike C? Remember they had all those DJs, and it was like an hour of all these DJs, and he put it together. And remember, Mike C was one of the DJs, and then you said, and Tretch, all of the DJs, all the hip hop artists was on there. And it's like just getting hip hop artists from all over, from back in the day and all of that. And remember that one? I'm gonna repost that because it shows somebody like a Mike C, a Tretch, and everybody who is still in the game may not be in the game. And that right there makes me think of that. But it also, when he said dancers, it makes me think, I believe it was either Heavy D's dancers or Big Daddy Kane dancers who actually had fatality doing dancing at one of the shows. So he's
Yeah,
right.
that's trouble
You
too.
can't, yeah, I can't, but I'm gonna go back and repost those two. The DJ that, and he just had hip hop artists from all over from back in the day. And one is Mike C from East Orange. And
Mhm.
and Mike is just lyrically, you could stop him on the street today and he will just go in. But he just never reached his full potential for various reasons. But he is lyrically, a lot of people still can't touch him.
See,
And it's
that's
just
the case. That's the case with a lot of the actual founders of
Right.
this culture. They just didn't get the chance to monetize off of it, but
right,
they were there at the inception. They were there.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, regardless of whether they got it or not, whether they got the money or not, they had the spirit and the creativity, the innovation to make this possible for you to even do what you're
In
doing.
the
So-
language of our old folks, they made a way out of nowhere.
right.
And I want to say,
Hip hop was
when
born
did
for those of us who had music taken out of the schools, who had our musical traditions interrupted
That's
and
right.
invisibilized.
and
That's
I
right.
want to
Created almost out of nothing.
And I
That's
want to
right.
say, in hip hop, a lot of our artists were actually raped in the beginning, and didn't get to really start monetizing. I think until a Puffy, recently, they start taking control
Let me
of
tell
their
you,
dollars and
honestly,
stuff.
it didn't. The money didn't really start rolling in for hip hop until the '90s.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was going on in the '80s. People saw the potential in the '80s. Everybody was jumping in the '80s, but things didn't start rolling until the '90s. That's when it was all about your status, whether you were gold and platinum. Like, people weren't thinking about gold records back in the '80s. They just wanted to make records. It was about having a record deal, period, back in the day, which is why so many artists got raped, because they didn't know the business. They just wanted that record deal. They just wanted to get on, had the videos, had to, hear themselves on the radio. They wanted the record deal. You know what I'm saying? But by the time the 90s got around, the people who were doing the business in the 80s, by the time the 90s got around, it became about status. Okay, which one of these artists is going to bring us gold? Which one of these artists is going to bring us platinum? So that became the new thing in the 90s. It was about your status. You know what I mean?
And that was the beginning of the end of the golden age, too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
It's been one hell of a show.
We always call the 80s the golden era. I always say the 80s was the golden era, but then the early 90s was the gold era when they started focusing on gold records, because that's when everybody was
Mic dropper.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rhino. Yes.
Yeah.
This has been one hell of a show. Ooh,
Yes, it is.
loaded show.
It is.
You all politics and local people are pretty deep.
Yes. Sometimes you just got to go back and replay it and listen to it, because sometimes you don't get it the first time. Yes.
Oh, so real quick, I got to make this announcement. I'm not going to be on next week. I will be in D.C. with Congressman, because we're going to be doing the CBC.
Nice.
The party, yes.
The congressman.
You that DJ now. That's right.
That's right.
The party will be starting
You
right
ride that,
about
Rhino.
now.
You the congressional DJ, brother. You the congressional DJ.
Yes, listen.
Gotta make that happen. Gotta Congressman Pay made that happen for you.
I'm trying to make some plans. I don't know. His
Come on,
assistant.
Donna, we
might be
saw
able
you
to
last
grow.
time. We got to see you this time.
Yeah, we had a good time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we gonna work that out.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's funny because last week you were talking about the Sugar Hill Gang and how they just got the rights to own their name again. And that's that whole, they didn't know that business, right?
Yeah.
Like that business got to them. And dude, I mean,
and where would hip hop be without the Sugar
a lot
Hill
of these people got ripped off, all the other stuff. And he's talking all this trash. Like, nah, man, the reason why you can eat is because of them. That was a punk move on his part, man. He lost a lot of credibility off of that.
Yeah, man. I mean, people talking about exiling him from the culture now, man.
Well, I mean, he exiled himself.
Because and the whole thing too, and this is what Russell Simmons was bringing up in his response, was that, like, what have you done for the culture to even make these comments? What have you done? You know?
That's some privileged. That's some privileged stuff, man. Like, yeah, man. But this really has been.
That's like somebody saying, "I'm not gonna vote today." They don't understand. Yes, some privilege. Yeah, people that we young people got to get it together, and to that point, as an educator, there's a reason that they're really fighting hard to take history out of our classrooms so that people can continue to make ignorant statements.
Yeah,
like that, and it's
really
all
just the
over
ignorant statements, but not just the ignorant statements, but also to rewrite the narrative. That's what they really trying to do.
Right.
Tell a different narrative. Trying to switch the narrative.
Because the only people who are worse are the people who got paid. So like all the people who were pioneers get erased, right? The authenticity gets erased. And
I was about to make a comment about the Beastie Boys, but I really like the Beastie Boys. But 10 years from now, they'll be saying that Vanilla Ice had kind of opened the doors. Like people will do something weird like that.
If you don't control the narrative, you show happen.
That's right. All right. So, but it's been a great show, man.
Two things we got to wrap up. Two things real quick. Today is John Coltrane's birthday anniversary. Right?
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Huge to the soul of Black folk, right? And I want to shout October. We're showing Nation Time in support of the convention at the library at 1:00. And Trauma to Trust, something very special that Equal Justice USA does, is starting at the end of the month. That's something I want y'all to follow me on Facebook because I'm putting that out too. All right, just wanted to get that out.
And also last week was the 21st of September, so everyone was rocking Earth, Wind, Fire.
Yeah.
So for that September.
That's Kwame Nkrumah.
Oh, what's that? His birthday?
Kwame Nkrumah was born on April on the 21st.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. So that Earth, Wind, and Fire has a lot of meaning. There's some hidden meaning on that. All right. Mm-hmm. So it's been.
I'll be on tomorrow, 3 p.m. I'm probably going to go into some tomorrow.
Yep. Everybody, I need everybody to all roads will be leading to DC to the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference. They have not met because of COVID in 2 years. And as you just heard, our own DJ Rhino will be rocking out the Black Party with our, Congressman, the 10th Congressional District.
I got some people that are coming down from the job.
DJ Rhino. So we gotta, maybe we'll be broadcasting live from there. We'll be figuring it out by next week.
Nice. Hey, take care.
Live on location.
Okay.
Peace.